The Angels of Death wage war across the length and breadth of the stars in order to preserve his Imperium. Derived from the bloodlines of the noble sons of the Emperor, each and every scion of the Primarchs boldly charge into the searing flames of endless war. For today, we shall elucidate the inheritors of the Legiones Astartes and primogenitors from which every subsequent chapter would be derived. The second founding of the Adeptus Astartes. The Angels of Absolution are a second founding successor chapter of the Dark Angels. Retaining strong bonds to their primogenitor, unlike their peers of the Unforgiven chapters, the Angels of Absolution believe their past sins have been cleansed. Seeing the fall of Caliban as their act of atonement made to the Master of Mankind, the chapter's title belies their culture of forgiveness. Recruiting aspirants from the planets of Grimport, Plainsworld, and other unknown feral worlds, their bloodline is shared with each of their Unforgiven kinsmen due to their proclivity to evenly distribute and share candidates. The members of the chapter's inner circle are known as the Hidden Brotherhood and maintain their knowledge of the events which caused the fall of their brethren. Though complying with the Unforgiven chapter's mission to hunt down the fallen angels of their creed, the Angels of Absolution regardless do not believe their acts of interrogation and execution will bring their kinsmen closer to redemption. Venerated for their service during the invasion of Nova Sulis, Corinth Crusade, and Siege of Vrax, the chapter is also noted for committing the entirety of its might to fight the War Master of Chaos during Abaddon the Despoiler's 13th Black Crusade. Partially compliant to the Codex Astartes, the chapter fields 10 companies alike to its outlines and paints their ceramite bone white to symbolize their restitution. Their backpacks and chest aquilers trimmed with black. Red tactical symbology is indicated on their right pauldrons, with low Gothic numerals centered on their design in black to identify their squad, inverting the company markings of their primogenitor on their right knee plate. Veterans of the chapter and its inner circle typically don green hoods, cloaks and tabards to symbolize their knowledge of the fallen and further guards their hearts from shame. The symbol of their chapter, a white skull imposed over a black right-facing wing on a field of white. Currently deployed to persecute the Purge of Allhallow, their temporary alliance with the Tau Empire allows for their cleansing of the psychic plague besetting the planet. For within the Unforgiven chapters, it is beneficial for at least one of their creed not to be mired in guilt or shame. The Angels of Redemption are a second founding successor chapter of the Dark Angels. Relentless in their persecution of the fallen, these uncompromising sons of the Lion have garnered a reputation throughout the Imperium as among the most venerated chapters of the Astartes. Despite their martial skill, their habit of abandoning their allies should signs of the fallen present themselves results in Imperial forces refusing to accept their aid. Evading censure by the Emperor's Holy Inquisition for their flagrant actions due to the birth of the Cicatrix Maledictum, the actions of Abaddon the Despoiler, in a strange manner, have unknowingly aided the chapter. Hunting the fallen alongside the Angels of Vengeance and Lion Sable during the Forgotten Wars lasting from 580.M31 to 632.M32, the ruinous powers annihilated the Lion Sable and wrought a heavy toll on the Angels of Redemption. Usurping the chapter world of their fallen brethren, the Angels of Vengeance and Retribution replenished their numbers from the Lion Sable's fiefdom. Earning further glories during the defense of Gatling Hive, Achilles Crusade, Third War for Armageddon, and War of Beasts, the chapter's elite 1st and 2nd companies, the Red Wings, lay waste to the most dangerous enemies of the Imperium. Clad in halved ceramite of bone white and forest green, the chapter mark their chest aquilers and tactical designations with red paint on their right pauldrons, stenciling their squad number on their tactical roll with white low Gothic numerals. Their company is designated on their right knee plate. The symbol of their chapter, a white skull flanked by black wings on a field of bone white, strikes fear into the hearts of the wicked. Concealing their warplate with hoods, cloaks and tabards of red, the shame of each veteran of the chapter, knowing of the fall of Caliban, guards their hearts from enticement to join their fallen kin. The Angels of Vengeance are a second founding successor chapter of the Dark Angels. By far the most clandestine of the Unforgiven chapters, the Angels of Vengeance take no pride in open displays of valor, nor plaudits won in war, despite the extensive list of honors they have accrued. Single-minded in their persecution of the enemies of the Imperium, these cold and obsessive Astartes never relent in their purge of the unclean. Unwilling to ever retreat, no matter the foes they face, the dogged tenacity of the Angels of Vengeance has often wrought immense casualties due to their refusal to adapt their methods of war, no matter the effectiveness of the tactics of their foes. Achieving near impossible victories, won through obstinate determination, failure is not tolerated by these fearless Sons of the Lion. Their hunt for the fallen, alongside the Angels of Redemption and Lion Sable into the Eye of Terror, severely depleting their number during the Forgotten Wars. The extinction of the Lion Sable chapter allowed for their replenishment using the stock of their chapter homeworld, Nachtworld. Honored for their service during the Siege of Dominus Prime and Siege of San Apolis, though such battles on occasion depleted their numbers to the point of requiring an entire century to recover, their efforts have regardless been invaluable to the Imperium. Appointing their Terminator Elite to their Dreadwing 1st Company and Mobile Hunters of the Raptor Wing 2nd Company, their veneration of their Legion of Origin is further exemplified with the conventions of their heraldry. Mimicking the First Legion's panoply of war from the era of the Great Crusade, their black ceramite is adorned with bone-white chest aquillas and tactical designations on their right pauldrons. Dark red low Gothic numerals are centered on their designs to indicate their squad number, whilst alike to other Unforgiven chapters, their company is noted on their right knee plate. The symbol of their chapter, a red-cowled, stylized winged white skull on a field of black, epitomizes their duty to bring the fallen to justice. Reinforced with Primaris Space Marines, the Angels of Vengeance embark renewed of purpose and imbued with strength, deploying their new Inceptor and Assault squads with such great effect that few enemies can deny their overwhelming assaults. The Destroyers are a second founding successor chapter of the White Scars. Present during the Battle of Coruscant V, among the first battles waged by the Destroyers, the chapter's forebears witnessed the last battle fought with their Genesire before his disappearance into the Webway. Characterized by their aggressive fighting style, drawing on their lineage of the Great Khan, despite their vaunted service during the 13th Black Crusade of Abaddon the Despoiler and War of Beasts, their methods in war have drawn scrutiny by the wider Imperium. Clad in black ceramite, adorned with sunburst yellow pauldrons, helmets and Aquila insignias, the Astartes indicate their tactical designation on their right pauldron with yellow paint. Adopting the conventions of the Codex Astartes, unlike many of the successors of the 5th Legion, the Destroyers assign their squad numeral in Low Gothic on their tactical symbol and mark their company on their left knee plate with the outlined Codex-compliant color scheme. The symbol of their chapter, a black skull surrounded by 4 lightning bolts on a field of sunburst yellow, epitomizes their affinity for lightning strikes. Their gene seed rumored to be unstable due to their savage nature, the chapter cares little for the opinions of outsiders and seeks only to embark upon their next mission. The Marauders are a second founding successor chapter of the White Scars. Isolationist and wary of outsiders, despite their aloof nature, the Marauders never refuse to aid Imperial forces across the Void and trade only the minimal amount of intel to enable joint cooperation. Renowned for their skill as marksmen and snipers, the Marauders combine such prowess with ambushes, unleashing overwhelming force of arms. Venerated for their actions during the relief of Ferak's Hive, Dayata Purge, and Orphean War, on several occasions, the chapter have aided their primogenitor in battle and proven fitting in their complementary strategies. Clad in yellow ceramite, adorned with black chest aquillas and tactical markings on their right pauldrons, the chapter utilizes white high-Gothic numerals on the center of such designs to indicate their squad, and black high-Gothic numerals on their left knee plates to identify their companies. The symbol of their chapter, a black sword wreathed in red flames on a field of yellow, epitomizes their martial skill and duty to purge the wicked. Siring the infamous Mantis Warriors chapter, the deeds conducted by their descendants during the Badab War, though infamous, nonetheless exemplify their genetic line's skill in combat. For to face the Marauders in battle is to incur the unrestrained wrath of the Warhawk's fury. The Rampagers are a second founding successor chapter of the White Scars. Honoring the sacred traditions of their primogenitor legion, the Rampagers ritually scar their flesh to denote their rank and battle honors. Derived from the ancient blooding of the 5th Legion, which united their kinsmen in purpose, the drawn blood from such rituals is mixed with the drinks of all present in the subsequent ceremonies, honoring their achievements. Recruiting new aspirants to their chapter from conquered feral worlds, only those deemed exempt from both physical mutations and spiritual corruption are accepted. Present during the Dabul Free campaign, Abaddon the Despoiler's 7th Black Crusade, and Slaughter at Makan, their efforts to aid their allies on numerous campaigns have not gone unnoticed by the Adeptus Astartes. Clad in red ceramite, centered by black aquillas on their chest, their tactical role is designated on their right greave in black paint, with likewise colored high Gothic numerals on their shoulder guards identifying their squad number. Nominally adhering to the conventions of the Codex Astartes, the chapter paints their right knee guard in the prescribed Codex-compliant company color scheme. The symbol of their chapter, a yellow lightning bolt grasped by a white hand on a field of red, derived from their legion of origin, exemplifies their readiness to unleash their wrath upon their foes. Upholding the legacy of the Warhawk, the Rampagers continue to combat the enemies of the Imperium with unrelenting force.
There is no greater glory than being the first warrior to spill the foe's blood. The Stormlords are a second founding successor chapter of the White Scars. Founded in the wake of the Great Civil War of the Horus Heresy, with time, a rivalry between the chapter and its primogenitor would grow. Competing to surpass the glories of the White Scars when taking to the field of battle, their service to the Emperor has been lauded far and wide by the Imperium. Experts at hunting orc wars perpetrated by the Greenskin hordes, their feasting halls are lined with the claimed scalps of slain orcs. Honored for their service during the War of the Beast, Death of the Witching Moon, retaking of Rin's World, and Third War for Armageddon, their drawing of first blood when facing the orcs of Warboss Death Drekker wounded the pride of the warriors of Chogoris. Clad in halved heraldry of white and red paint, their backpacks and chest aquillas are adorned with black. Identifying their tactical role with white paint on their right pauldrons, the chapter eschews the traditions of the White Scars by applying black low-Gothic numerals on their tactical designs, centered on or to either side in white paint to mark their squad. Complying with the outlines of the Codex Astartes with only slight deviation, the chapter paints their helmets varying colors to identify their company rather than their pauldrons, with veterans adding a laurel icon to their crown. The symbol of their chapter, a white skull superimposed by 3 red lightning bolts on a field of white, honors the tribal markings of Chogoris first used by their forebears of the 5th Legion. Championing the use of lightning strike warfare, characterized by the use of assault bikes and land speeders. The chapter adheres to the legacy of the Warhawk, much alike to their founding legion, and never relents in their persecution of the wicked. The Wolf Brothers are a second founding successor chapter of the Space Wolves. The only founding derived from the Sons of Russ, predating the Ultima founding. The inheritors of the Sixth Legion's glory have never been warriors to adhere to the strictures of the Codex Astartes. Founding this bespoke chapter in order to experiment with the outlines created by the Ultramarines Primarch, Rabute Guilliman. Such tampering with the wild gene seed of the Wolf King proved to be short-lived. Led by their first chapter master, Beor Arjak Grimason, the chapter set route upon the world of Keriol, chosen for its imitation of the environment of Fenris. Gifted half of the Sixth Legion's fleet, chapter serfs and armaments, it was the hope of the Vilka Fenrika that with continued efforts to sire more chapters of their genetic line, they would one day amass enough firepower to surround the Eye of Terror and contain its malevolent denizens. None truly know the first instance for their downfall, yet their gene curse of the Wolfen proved to be the cause of the Wolf Brothers' censure and disbandment by the Emperor's Holy Inquisition. The Canis Helix turned the Wolf Brothers into rabid monsters, consumed with bloodlust as their flesh and bones transformed into bestial parodies of their former stature. Disbanded by the Ordo Astartes, the gene stores of the chapter were destroyed, and those not turned into abominations were offered valor in sacrificing their lives in battle or summary execution. Fleeing into the dark corners of the void, the Wolf Brothers escaped their fate for millennia, yet remained a stain of dishonor to the rout. Some became renegades, others turned to chaos to better hunt the traitor warbands such as the Red Corsairs and Thousand Sons, and to this day, a few of their number are said to roam the stars. Diminished from their vast resources to only pockets of small bands patrolling the Eye of Terror. Nevertheless, a chance for resurgence came to light during the 32nd millennium. The Wolf Priest, Fra Wormblade Thraldir, claimed to have made a breakthrough in his study of the Canis Helix, and sought to revive the dormant dream that the Rout may one day sire new champions of their gene line. Dubbing his methods as the Tempering, Thraldir concocted a means to extract the flaws of their curse from their gene seed after a generation of toil, and harnessed his chapter's supernatural strength at no detriment to their sanity. Creating experiments matching the skill of a Space Wolf Astartes with no bestial characteristics, their lifespan would regardless never exceed a few hours. Unwilling to allow the Space Wolves to continue their experiments, the Demon Primarch, Magnus the Red, enacted his invasion of their fortress monastery. The Vilka Fenrika endured the Crimson King's wrath during the First Battle of the Fang, as the Great Wolf, Harik Erik Eriksson, defended his fiefdom. Drawing the Iron Helm from his homeworld, Magnus manipulated the route to departing Fenris and launched a surprise attack in their absence as reprisal for the burning of Prospero. Finding the world of Gangarva Prime not to be harboring Thousand Sons, but rather Wolf Brother Astartes warbands, Harik ordered their settlements be destroyed from orbit. The Crimson King succeeded in destroying the gene laboratories deep within the Fang, tearing the experiments into ribbons and purging all trace of Thraldir's research. Confronted by the Wolf Priest, Wormblade proved no match for a demon prince, and with his death, and sundering of priceless technologies derived from the days of unification, all hope for the Space Wolves to create further successor chapters lay in ruins. Returning with all haste to Fenris to protect the Aet, Harik Ironhelm personally dueled the Crimson King, and though wounding the champion of Tzeentch, fell in battle. The Space Wolves alone carried the genetic legacy of the Wolf King, and they would remain so until 999.M41, with the unleashing of the Ultima founding. The legacy of the Wolf Brothers, that of noble intentions, tarnished by primal savagery.
Smite now the scions of the Witch. grant us the strength to pierce their unclean flesh, to cover the fields with the pale forms of their blasphemous dead, to drown the thunder of guns with the shrieks of their dying, to lay waste to their citadels with hurricanes of fire, to wring the hearts of their kin with unavailing grief, to send them into the wastes of their desolated lands in rags and hunger, broken in spirit, worn with travail and begging for the refuge of the grave. We ask it in the spirit of wrath, O Master of mankind.
It is rare for any successor chapters of the Adeptus Astartes to be regarded with the same prestige as the original first founding. For those chapters are the progenitors for all glories to come, laying the foundations for both honor and treachery in kind on both sides of the divide between loyalist and traitor. Yet rarely, a chapter of the Adeptus Astartes grows to be revered to such a degree that none can deny their merit. Their fury in battle, deeds in victory, and means of waging war, a testament for all Astartes to regard. Chapters such as the second founding successors of the Imperial Fists, the Black Templars. Founded in the wake of the scouring of the traitors to the Imperium and interment of the Emperor of Mankind under the Golden Throne, the Black Templars would be birthed in an age of turmoil. Tasked with salvaging a scattered empire, two of the Primarchs of the Imperium would build the foundations of humanity's future. Primarch Rabute Guilliman of the Ultramarines would draft the Codex Astartes, a tome to ensure that the armies of the Adeptus Astartes would never again grow to a size capable of threatening the Imperium under the influence of a single banner. Whereas Primarch of the Imperial Fists, Rogel Dawn, would see to the slow, laborious task of ensuring the survival of Holy Terror and the subjects of the Imperium. Each Primarch given equal support from the remaining loyalist sons of the Emperor. Leman Russ and Vulcan would stand with Dawn, whilst Jaghatai Khan and Corvus Corax would side with Guilliman. Yet Dawn's legion would force his hand with the actions of the 7th Legion strike cruiser, Terrible Angel, engaging the Imperial Navy in battle. Once again threatening to begin a new civil war within the Imperium, Dawn would relent and agree to sunder his legion into smaller chapters, with his champion, Sigismund, leading his new successors as their chapter master. The zealous and defiant veterans of the Imperial Fists now repurposed within the newly established chapter, the Black Templars. Refusing to adhere to Primarch Guilliman's Codex Astartes, Sigismund would embark with his legion far from the throne world to craft his new chapter with his own Primarch's teachings in mind. Fueled with boundless rage and a thirst for vengeance, Sigismund would command his new chapter to hound and harry the demoralized traitors to the Imperium. Eradicating scores of heretics and Xenos throughout the galaxy, Sigismund would vow to never rest in his prosecution to destroy the enemies of the Emperor, enacting an endless crusade known as the Eternal Crusade, which each High Marshal of the chapter must vow to prolong with their appointment. The Eternal Crusade has endured unbroken for 10,000 years, embodying the original vision of the Emperor's Great Crusade, the Black Templars' endeavor to protect, reunite, and unify the scattered remnants of humanity, persecuting the witch, the alien, and the heretic with relentless, unbridled fury in the process. Conducting scores of crusades for millennia, the Black Templars have earned a reputation as the single most xenophobic and religiously pious chapter within the Adeptus Astartes. Uncompromising in their dedication to smite the enemies of humanity, the Black Templars continue to wage war and crusades throughout the stars into the 41st millennium. Preferring to fight their foes in close combat, it is the way of the Templar to feel the warm blood of his enemies drench his tabard and slake his blade, their righteous anger driving them to unparalleled frenzies of slaughter, giving no mercy or reprieve to their enemies, as they orbitally decimate their enemies before conducting drop pod landings and gunship assaults, vowing oaths of faith and protection to the Emperor, The Astartes of cousin chapters regard the Black Templars as fanatical in their devotion to the Master of Mankind, spending their time when not in battle praying within shrines devoted to the Emperor, Rogel Dawn, and Sigismund. For the Black Templars perceive the Emperor as a god, and those whom deny this truth risk the wrath of the sons of Sigismund. Known within the Black Templars as neophytes, recruits of the chapter are drafted from conquered worlds. As a fleet-based chapter, the Black Templars utilize recruitment worlds to replenish their fallen warriors. Their known recruitment worlds being Barbarossa IV, Cloister, Fergax, Killhaven, Lilia Mundi, Purgasius Free, and Solemnus. Building keeps on every world they conquer or reclaim in the name of the Emperor. Only a handful of recruits are tutored during a Terran standard year. Though within the Imperium, it is a great honor to become a Space Marine of the Black Templars, with some young warriors of planetary defense forces journeying to these worlds to become Space Marines. Known as Expectanton, these young souls will endure dangerous trials and journeys before even attaining the rank of Neophyte. Yet the chapter's zealous hatred of mutants and warp sorcery denies entry to aspirants whom bear any form of genetic impurity or psychic potential. For the Black Templars hold no barracks for a librarius, and condemn the use of psychers. Aspirants that pass their varied trials are implanted with the Black Templars' gene seed until their numbers burgeon to 24 neophytes per keep. Once approved by the keep's castellan, apothecaries, and chaplains as fit for service, they will be dispatched to the nearest crusade fleet to undergo the next stage of their induction. More grueling trials await the initiates to weed out the weakest of their number. With no dedicated scout company, alike to contemporary Codex Astartes compliant chapters, a Black Templar Astartes known as an initiate will mentor the most promising candidate. Swearing an oath to train the neophyte, the initiate will prepare the fledgling Templar for his ascension as a battle brother, teaching his pupil the history of the chapter, the rites of worship to the Emperor, and arts of war customary to the Templars. The neophyte pledging obedience to his master, he shall vow to never dishonor him. Acting as servants to their master's whims, neophytes will attend to the initiate during banquets, maintain their weapons, and conduct other day-to-day duties. Observed by the chapter's chaplains, the reclusiasm shall watch for signs of weakness in the neophyte's faith. Fighting alongside their master in battle, the bond between neophyte and his mentor grows strong. Should the mentor die in battle, another battle brother shall shoulder the burden of teaching his pupil. Likewise, should the neophyte die, his mentor shall swear to avenge his death or die in the trying. Once the neophyte has proven his skill in battle, his mentor shall submit him to the chapter's chaplains to undergo the trials of purity. Should he succeed, the neophyte will be elevated to the rank of battle brother during a ceremony of reverence, given the rank of initiate, and honored with the bequeathment of a suit of power armor. As a non-Codex Astartes compliant chapter, the Black Templars employ their own naming conventions, command structures, and ranks. The majority of the chapter consists of initiates, battle brothers whom have passed the trials to become true Astartes. Should the initiate survive their many years of combat, they shall mentor a neophyte under the rank of initiate before ascending to the next stage of the chapter's command structure. Ascending to the ranks of the Sword Brethren Elite First Company, the initiates relinquish their rank and duty to train neophytes of the chapter. Accepting their new role as veterans of the chapter, they shall be trained in the use of Terminator armor. Excelling in the use of melee combat, whilst waging war in the thickest of battles, the Sword Brethren fight alongside their kin under the command of a marshal of the chapter. Should the marshal in command of the Sword Brethren host fall in battle, warriors of the Brethren shall be chosen to duel in ritual single combat, to decide whom shall bear the honor as the new marshal of the Crusade fleet. There also exists a specialist rank amongst the Black Templars akin to a company captain, Castellans. Assigned to lead companies of Black Templars across many campaigns, the Castellans command by example at the forefront of their armies. Castellans that command several companies, often having experience as a member of the Sword Brethren prior to being promoted, often after centuries of esteemed valor in combat. answering only to the marshals of the chapter. The leaders of the many crusade fleets of the Black Templars, the marshals are amongst the greatest warriors of the chapter. Due to their purity to their cause and vast experience, the marshals of the chapter bear the responsibility of ensuring the survival and bloody conquest of thousands of their subordinates. Inspirational examples to the battle brothers of the Black Templars, there is only one figure above such stalwart paragons of the chapter's might: the High Marshal. For all intents and purposes, the chapter master of the Black Templars, there is only a single High Marshal in service at any given time of any crusade. The manifestation of the chapter's will, the High Marshal is not only the greatest tactical and strategic mind of the Black Templars, but also a peerless warrior amongst its ranks. Steeped in the mythology and history of the chapter's vast glories, the High Marshal will ensure the continuation of the Order's eternal crusade against the ruinous powers, but also wage new crusades at his own discretion. As the leader of one of the largest contingents of the Adeptus Astartes, burgeoning past the guidance of the Codex Astartes, it is clear that the High Marshal of the Black Templars commands one of the single largest and most devastating armies within the Imperium. Without the constraints of the High Lords of Terror, the Black Templars are one of the single most autonomous armies within the galaxy, by design allowing them to be untethered by the constraints imposed under other chapters of the Astartes. The Black Templars adhere to the heraldry conventions within their chapter, but allow for individual adornments of devotional imagery, litanies, and purity seals. Honoring the black and white panoply of war, first donned by the Emperor's champion and progenitor of the Black Templars, Sigismund, the chapter's Astartes wear simple black armor, cloaked with white tabards. Though the chapter's tech marines and tank crews change their armor color to the red of Mars, they retain enough of their chapter's heraldry to prevent angering the machine spirits of their war gear. Their chapter livery proudly adorning both their pauldrons, a black Maltese cross on a field of white, trimmed with black for initiates of the chapter, and veterans adopting a red and black design. Neophytes bear pauldrons with no trim, whilst battle brothers change their pauldron trim to denote specialization. Assault squads change their livery trim to red, with chaplains inverting their livery, and apothecaries adding the seal of their order onto the Maltese cross of the assault squad design, often bearing seals on their left greaves to denote the crusade which each Templar belongs to, wrapping chains or bindings to their arms to prevent their weapons from being claimed until the end of battle, the tradition stemming from the fighting pits of the World Eaters, first adopted by Sigismund. Though there also exist chains of zeal, which are permanently welded directly to the Astartes' gauntlets. Those burdened with such a shackling cannot remove their armored gloves, forever compelled to wear arms for their chapter until the end of his days. Though within the Black Templars, there also exists unique heraldry for their most deadly warrior, the Emperor's champion. Following in the steps of their founder, Sigismund, the Emperor's champion embodies the chapter's glorious skill at arms and storied victories. Trimmed in the black, white, and gold armor of faith, and bearing the laurel wreath upon his helmet, the Emperor's champion bears the relic blade, the black sword, first wielded by Sigismund, a glorious beacon of the chapter's valor, etched in ceramite. Each company of the Black Templars is composed primarily of initiate battle brothers. With up to 20 comprising a single company, most companies fight with bolters, blades, and zealous rage. With the tendency of each company to form and dissolve with regularity, most squads are bonded together by camaraderie rather than imposed organizational structure, with most squads roughly adhering to 10 initiates, each mentoring a neophyte. Highly flexible once deployed, some companies will bear weapons such as plasma guns, flamers, and power fists, should specialist war gear be required for the crusade or battle at hand. Fighting alongside their neophytes, the initiates train their bold aspirants in the most dangerous of trials by fire, the battlefield. The weak perish and the strong survive, each new veteran of the chapter bolstering their chapter's already deadly reputation. With the Black Templars bereft of a dedicated scout company, battle-proven neophytes will oftentimes be grouped together into independent squads to act as scouts. Tasked with infiltration and analysis of enemy positions, the neophytes tasked such important missions are driven to excel in order to please their mentors. Due to their dismissal of the Codex Astartes, it is difficult to ascertain the true amount of Black Templar Astartes in service. As many as 14 crusades have been conducted at any one time during the chapter's history, though current projections indicate an average of 3 crusades to be typical for the chapter during the 41st millennium. Rumored to number to more than 6,000 Astartes, the Black Templars are regarded as the largest chapter of Adeptus Astartes within the Imperium. A member of only 3 known chapters to number more Astartes than Codex compliance, their contemporaries being the Space Wolves and Grey Knights. Scrutinized by the Inquisition, the Black Templars seemingly prevent censure by the Imperium due to their flawless record of compliance, purging of Xenos, and duty to the Emperor. With their hatred of warp corruption, the Black Templars refuse to fight alongside any chapter that deploys the use of librarians or psychers, with exception given to the Grey Knights chapter due to their widespread incorruptible nature and genetic heritage of the Emperor. With Black Templars appointed to serve as members of the Death Watch, finding their service challenging in fighting alongside librarians of the elite organization of Xenos Hunters. As a fleet-based chapter, the Black Templars' companies are scattered throughout the galaxy, conducting various crusades. Under the command of the Marshals and scrutiny of the High Marshal, each crusade fleet consists of 5 great companies. The first, as is customary, being the Marshal's Household, consisting of the fleet's greatest warriors. The 4 subsequent companies, known as Fighting Companies, are named after their commanding Castellan, often monikered with a unique company name. For example, Castellan Edissus Company during the Akron Crusade would name his company the First Sons. Ever vigilant to bombard and strike their enemies from their vast fleet of warships, the Black Templars also have possession of one of the largest ships within the Imperium, the rare Gloriana-class flagship, the Eternal Crusader. Home of the chapter's reclusiasm, armories, relics, and vaults, the Eternal Crusader acts as the chapter's fortress monastery and epicenter. Inscribing their many deeds and glories within the flagship's Hall of Records, the Black Templars stand ready to combat any threat that the galaxy can muster. As the single largest and most devotional chapter in defense of the Emperor's Imperium, woe betide any foe whom shall face the zealous sons of Dawn. Trust in the Emperor at the hour of battle. Trust to him to intercede and protect his warriors true as they deal death on alien soil. Turn their seas to red with the blood of their slain. Crush their hopes, their dreams, and turn their songs into cries of lamentation.
I have not summoned you for censure, but to speak earnestly. Rogel Dawn thought there was no higher purpose to the existence of the Astartes than the unification of mankind. I see that in you also, and his determination. I, need men who fight bravely, even when faced with great tragedy. I have seen with my own eyes in recent days how you inspire intense loyalty in those around you, and I see you hold duty above glory or vengeance. My brother would be proud. Reassemble your chapter, Pedro Cantor, and look now to the future, rather than the past. The Loki sector and the Imperium entire has need of you. The successor chapters of the Adeptus Astartes would forge many deeds across the stars in blood, sweat, and toil. Some would become synonymous with glory, others grim necessity, and a select few would garner a reputation as among the most noble warriors of the Imperium. For today, we shall elucidate a storied chapter known as quite possibly the most valiant of the Angels of Death, the stalwart defenders of the innocent, the Crimson Fists. In the wake of the internment of the Master of Mankind upon the Golden Throne, with the conclusion of the Horus Heresy, a new generation of Astartes would be needed to combat the foul terrors of the galaxy. The legions of old had proven disastrous for the well-being of humanity, and shown that even among the Emperor's angels,
none were beyond the enticements of chaos. In order to prevent further catastrophe of another civil war led by demagogues commanding vast Astartes armies, the Primarch of the Ultramarines, Rabute Guilliman, would pen a codex to limit their strength. Known as the Codex Astartes, this revered tome would outline the organization of the Legiones Astartes into smaller, successor chapters. The Sons of Rogel Dawn, the Imperial Fists, would sire a new founding comprised of its remaining strength. Aside from its primogenitor, the remaining 2 chapters would be characterized by the Legion's most prominent traits. The Black Templars would exhibit the zeal of its fury in battle, whilst the Legion's level-headed and collected souls would found the Crimson Fists. The most junior members of the 7th Legion, with exception to its senior commanders, the Crimson Fist would be led by their venerable hero of the heresy, Alexis Pollux, and venture forth into the void to claim new deeds and glories. The so-called Great Father of the chapter had proven his military genius during the Battle of Phal and duties to defend the Pharos device of Sofa, and would prove to be a worthy chapter master. An expert at naval tactics and an immensely imposing figure in stature, Pollux would lead his chapter for 800 years before perishing. Crusading across the stars as a fleet-based chapter, the Sons of Alexis would over time be regarded as among the most competent, loyal, and stalwart defenders of the Imperium. Serving predominantly within the Loki sector of the Segmentum Tempestus, with their aid given to the Emperor's Holy Inquisition and the Adeptus Administratum, the Crimson Fist would quell Xenos outbreaks and destroy corrupted Astartes chapters such as the Sons of Gideon and the Marines Vigilant. Famed for their crusade of righteous liberation, which would last for 3 centuries and whittle down their number to only 128 Astartes. Building a close bond with the worlds of the Loki sector, the chapter would be granted feudal rights to establish their own chapter planet upon Rin's world. Gifted for their victory of the Voltigern Crusade, their new fiefdom of the Agri-world would, despite its proximity to viable neighboring recruitment worlds and resources, incur a heavy toll for the Crimson Fists. Constructing their new fortress monastery, the Arx Tyrannus, from the remains of their ancient battle barge, Rutulus Tyrannus, within the Hellblade Mountains of Rin's world's southern continent, the Crimson Fist would stave off countless greenskin invasions. Yet during 989.M41, a gigantic Orc war, led by the warlord Snagrod, the arch-arsonist of Caradon, would surround the Loki sector and resolve to conquer Rin's world. Massacring the defenders of the colony of Bad Landing, the citizenry would call for the aid of the chapter, to which its third company would heed their hails. Utterly defeated by the Xenos, the third company would face overwhelming opposition due to inaccurate intel reports, with few Astartes survivors escaping to their chapter world. Recalling every member of the chapter to Rin's world, the Lord Hellblade and Chapter Master of the Crimson Fists, Pedro Cantor, would organize the defense of their homeworld and brace themselves for the onslaught impending from Snagrod. An invasion force of unseen scale, save for the Greenskin invasion of the Second War for Armageddon, the Orc War would reach the surface of the planet by using an obscenely suicidal warp maneuver, which no sane human would dare to attempt. Every company of the venerated and proud chapter would face the Xenos and employ orbital defense systems, tiered defensive lines, and their martial skill to combat the Orc menace. One of the planet's defense missiles would suffer a catastrophic failure and destroy the chapter's fortress monastery, causing a chain reaction within the chapter's arsenal of weapons, creating a vast explosion. Hundreds of Astartes, chapter serfs, and civilians would perish, leaving only 16 Astartes within the fortress monastery surviving its destruction. Rin's world's defenses would deactivate, allowing for the Orcs to overwhelm the surface. Reorganizing within the planet's capital of New Rin City, Pedro Cantor would reunite with the remaining Astartes of the chapter, numbering less than 400. 2 choices would be presented to Cantor: marshal his men for a valiant last stand fated to extinguish the chapter's future deeds, or fight a guerrilla war of survival until reinforcements would arrive. Fighting for 18 solar months in small bands of warriors, the Crimson Fist would await the arrival of the Imperial Navy
and during 990.M41, the beleaguered Crimson Fists, now fewer in number than months prior, would face the Orc Xenos alongside fresh soldiers of the Astra Militarum, contingents of cousin Space Marine chapters, and deployments of Titan Legios of the Relief Fleet. Routing the War of Snagrod, the Crimson Fist would look upon their tattered homeworld ravaged by a war of disgusting savagery and bloodshed. The Crimson Fist had lost over half its men, their fortress monastery lay in ruins, their gene stores had been ravaged, and many of the relics of their chapter had been destroyed. Struggling for years to rebuild their chapter world, the Crimson Fist would harbor a deep hatred for the Orc Xenos following their defiant stand upon Rin's world. Deprived of their homeworld's resources, the Crimson Fist now venture far from the reminder of their shame, returning only to mourn their fallen brethren. Following their near defeat, the Crimson Fist would find their circumstance to be a rare one among any serving Astartes chapter. Now overwhelmingly comprised of veterans and specialists, such as tech marines and apothecaries. No longer viable to act as a crusading army of the Adeptus Astartes, the Crimson Fist would be unable to commit its forces to wage war, with so many tasks committing its Astartes to rebuild and repair its waning resources. The chapter's gene seed, now endangered, committing any Astartes to fight in their state, would threaten the extinction of the chapter. Hastening recruitment of new aspirants into the chapter, the Crimson Fist would balance on a knife's edge, as its companies now numbered only handfuls of Space Marines. Restraining their hunger for reprisal against the Orc Xenos in the surrounding Loki sector, the Crimson Fist would temper their rage as the chapter rebuilt. Championing survival in the stead of personal glory, the legacy of their heroic forebear would provide great solace in their task of resisting their temptation to succumb to despair. Yet with the return of the avenging son of the Emperor, Rabute Guilliman, the Crimson Fist would be delivered from their plight. Rin's world would once more be beset with invaders following the expanse of the Great Rift caused by the destruction of Cadia during Abaddon the Despoiler's 13th Black Crusade. Warp storms would emerge within the Loki sector as demonic incursions would spill forth upon the planet, led by the demon prince, Raxor. Facing their foe, despite their still ravaged numbers, the Crimson Fist would not allow the thralls of the ruinous powers to taint their homeworld. The timely intervention of the Primarch of the Ultramarines and his Indomitas crusade would aid the relief of Rin's world, and with the demonic threat quelled, a new breed of warriors would be bequeathed to the long-suffering Astartes. Primaris Space Marines, clad in the heraldry of the Crimson Fists, would be installed within the companies of the chapter. Among the most beleaguered chapters of the Astartes, the Crimson Fist would be among the first to be replenished with their new Primaris reinforcements. Their genetic makeup, more closely composed of their Primarch's own genome than any of their ranks, the purity of their new kin would harken back to the Great Crusade, as they had been kept in stasis for millennia as a contingency by the Master of Mankind. For some among these new warriors would recall personally observing the Primarch of the Imperial Fists, as they had been separated from their kin of the 7th Legion prior to being redeployed in the Imperium's darkest hour. Now bolstered with a new breed of Space Marines, the Crimson Fist would be renewed with the inspiration of the Primarch of the Ultramarines and continue to wage war in the name of the Imperium. Their long suffering not over, the sons of Rogal Dorn would regardless emulate the example of their Primarch and the Avenging Son as saviors of the downtrodden of the Imperium. Dispatching his reinvigorated chapter to aid the most beleaguered of engagements across the stars, the Crimson Fists emancipate the defenders of the innocent in measured yet wrathful deployments. Aiding Imperial forces against demonic and Orc invasions, the chapter maximizes their efficiency with minimal casualties to honor the sacrifices of their slain battle brothers. Their noble sacrifices and deeds resounding throughout the Imperium as true paragons of humanity. As strict adherents of the Codex Astartes, the Crimson Fists view the tome akin to a sacred text, varying slightly from its outlines with their own customs earned through strife. The Crimson Fist would honor their past glories.
Following the chapter's colossal losses of the Crusade of Righteous Liberation, the chapter would number only 128 Space Marines in strength, and honor its first company henceforth by comprising 128 Astartes within its ranks. Following the combat doctrines of the Codex Astartes to the letter, most engagements by the Crimson Fists are broad in their methods of waging war. Countering any opposition with various tactical approaches, the chapter adapts quickly to changes in their enemy's deployment with exacting precision and well-trained reprisal attacks. Crusading for millennia, the chapter utilizes more specialist units than the dictates of the Codex Astartes allows, and boasts an extensive naval armada. The chapter utilizes more specialist units than the dictates of the Codex Astartes allows, and boasts an extensive naval armada, which is the envy of most Astartes chapters. Maintained by the chapter's tech marines, each vessel also harbors an Astartes apothecary, allowing for the preservation and retrieval of gene seed during the most fraught of skirmishes. Their numbers annihilated with the loss of their fortress monastery and the invasion of Rin's world by the Orc Xenos, the chapter would remain under strength, yet rebuilds to this day. Fielding 4 severely reduced companies, many scout cadres trained to one day ascend to the honored battle companies. Yet with the timely intervention of the Avenging Sun, Rabute Guilliman, the chapter has once more been reinforced with new companies of Primaris Space Marines. Slowly replenishing their forces, the Crimson Fist take to the stars once again as a crusading force, with each company led by a hero of the Rin's World campaign. Though with such a large contingent of its forces of its Primaris Marines still unproven in the eyes of the chapter, their efficacy remains scrutinized. Interacting with the populace of Rin's world rarely, the Crimson Fist would be seen as aloof by the people of the Agri-world. Yet with their dismantling of their fortress monastery, the Arx Tyrannus from their chapter fleet, and reconstruction within the Hellblade Mountains, their continued presence would be enshrined around the ancient statue of their forebear, Alexis Pollux. Destroyed by the Orc War of Snagrod, it is unclear if the Crimson Fists have rebuilt their fortress monastery with their subsequent recovery efforts of Rin's world. Recruiting their forces from many worlds within the Loki sector, strangely, for a chapter with a base of operations, the chapter do not actively recruit from their homeworld. Preferring to draft recruits from feral worlds such as Blackwater, the Crimson Fist see great potential of the denizens of the world, infamous for its harsh conditions. Ferocious yet noble people, the humans of Blackwater and its contemporaries are intimately familiar with adversity and stoically struggle against the world's harsh environments. Drawing only from warriors proven to exhibit honorable conduct and athleticism, the Crimson Fists only recruit those suited to be followers of their own creed and culture. Transitioning from a fleet-based to world-based chapter, the Crimson Fists, while accepting recruits from Rin's world and its neighboring planets, regardless still prioritize the peoples of Blackwater with their annual traversal to the planet for the Festival of the Bloodied Fist. Ceremonially evaluating their aspirants through trials of mental, martial, and spiritual toil, the Crimson Fists command those successful in their trials to delve deep into the toxic swamps of Blackwater. Tasked with slaying a barb dragon with their bare hands, only the most capable of aspirants shall return with a token to prove their success in slaying such a dangerous beast. Appointed to the 10th Company with their successful surgeries and psycho-indoctrination, each neophyte of the Crimson Fists shall undertake the ritual known as the Steeping. Should they succeed in accepting their newly implanted organs and gene seed, these neophytes shall be known as full Battle Brothers and be appointed to one of the reserve companies. The chapter's gene seed, though incredibly stable, nonetheless bears the flaws inherent among all inheritors of the legacy of Rogel Dawn. Unable to utilize the Betcher's gland, allowing for their saliva to become corrosive, or the Susan membrane to facilitate deep hibernation, the Crimson Fist regardless boast a genetic purity, free of mutations or chaos contamination. Able to recruit at a hastened rate compared to their peers, the Crimson Fist, though under strength, are among the best suited to replenish their ranks. Escaping extinction time and again throughout their history, the Crimson Fist regardless stave off obsolescence. Burdened with the genetic curse of Rogel Dawn, the Crimson Fists, alike to their cousin successors of the 7th, shall not retreat from battle, nor suffer defeat in the name of the Praetorian.
Their stubborn refusal to live with the shame of defeat, the Crimson Fists are fortunate to have not succumbed to the same fate suffered by countless annihilated chapters of the Seventh. For the descendants of the Great Father would rather die than bring dishonor to their chapter. Among the Crimson Fists, several specialist ranks exist to facilitate duties not prescribed by the Codex Astartes. The Lord Hellblade is the title attributed by the people of Rin's world to the chapter master of the Crimson Fists. Recognized as a member of the Imperium's feudal nobility, the Lord Hellblade leads the elite First Crusade Company in the defense of the chapter homeworld. The Master of the Fleet oversees the Void Command of the Armada, yet does not hold the rank of Astartes Captain. Whilst the Monitor, a senior astropath of the chapter serfs, presides over the Communicatus of the once Arx Tyrannus. Astartes aspirants unable to accept the chapter's gene seed and implants honor the chapter as labor serfs and are treated with respect by their brethren, despite their failings. Regarded as the Chosen, these individuals support their ascended kin during combat as messengers, skilled laborers, and major domos who lead the personnel of the Chosen as their overseer. Acting as the personal attendant and confidant of the chapter master, the major domo is crucial in their deeds of facilitating the administration and coordination of the chapter's menials. With the loss of their fortress monastery, the Crimson Fist would utilize their chapter keep of the Zona Regis of Rin's world, the Cassar, as their new base of operations. Harbored within the Silver Citadel of New Rin City, under the protection of Void Shields, the chapter serfs dispatched to the protection of the chapter's contingent fortress toil to facilitate the needs of the chapter, whilst also rebuilding the Arx Tyrannus. Revering the legacy of the Imperial Fist Legion, the Crimson Fists retain close ties to their primogenitor chapter and its last War Protocol kin. Retaining many of its traditions, such as their proclivity to champion defensive strategies and battle doctrines, unique roles of their forebear, such as the title of Emperor's Champion, remain, but in a much diminished state. Permitting a singular warrior to adopt the panoply of the Emperor's Champion of the chapter on only the rarest of circumstances, only the direst of conflicts require such a revered harbinger of destruction. Gifted visions from the Master of Mankind himself, they shall claim the black sword and armor of faith of the chapter's armory and hunt their preordained foe in battle. Yet such an instance has not been recorded since the destruction of their fortress monastery during the invasion of Rin's world, with some speculating that such artifacts have been lost to the chapter during the conflict. Invited to the Imperial Fist's Feast of Blades alongside their kin of the Black Templars, Celestial Lions, Death Strike, Emperor's Warbringers, Excoriators, Executioners, Fire Lords, Fists Exemplar, Hammers of Dawn, Iron Knights, Knights of Dawn, Sons of Dawn, Soul Drinkers and White Templars, the Crimson Fists compete in the Centennial competition to strengthen their bonds of kinship. Choosing a company champion within their ranks, each member of the Last War successors battle in a test of arms to earn glory for their chapter. Awarding the victor custodianship of the artifact of the 7th Legion, the Sword of Sebastus, also known as the Dawn's Blade, the winner shall host the next tournament and choose the locale for the next competition a century following. The yearly calendar of the culture of the Crimson Fists also bears many sacred days of devotion which honor, yet do not worship, the Emperor, their Primarch, and their Great Father, Alexis Pollux. The Miracle of the Blood is observed by the chapter every year to mark the date of their chapter's founding. 20 chaplains of the Sacratium perform a ritual utilizing a drop of Rogal Dorn's own blood kept preserved within an ornate scepter. Releasing the dried lump of blood from its confinement to observe its rejuvenation to liquid form, this ritual reminds the chapter that their Genesire's presence still remains among them. The Day of Foundation coincides with the Festival of the Blood and honors the glories of their forebears by holding private ceremonies to study the writings of Alexis Pollux and Rogal Dorn. Recounting tales of their most glorious deeds, the Battle Brothers of the chapter cherish the deeds of their ancestors and seek to apply lessons learned from their legacy to forge their own legends in an introspective and humble manner. The Festival of the Bloodied Fist marks the ascendance of the Scout Marines of the chapter into fully fledged battle brothers. Requiring the aspirants to slay a barb dragon bare-handed upon the death world of Blackwater, their success in the ritual of the steeping is a moment of immense pride for those who succeed in their trial. Submerging their left fist into the blood of the slain barb dragon, this tradition marks their right to bear the crimson-clad ceramite fist of their new power armor suit. The Day of Renewal marks the chapter's replenishment of their gene banks with the reinforcements gifted to the chapter during the Indomitus Crusade. Vowing to renew their chapter to its former glory, the Crimson Fist resolved to repay their debt to the Lord Commander of the Imperium, Rabute Gilliman, for his salvation of their chapter's dire circumstance. The most revered champions of the chapter are gifted immense power fists to use in battle as symbols of their deeds made in the name of their chapter, and shall use such instruments of war to bludgeon their foes into bloody pulps. Claiming the teeth of slain orcs in battle, the Crimson Fists collect such tokens of their kills to be displayed within trophy rooms of the chapter. Adorning their armor in not only teeth, but also talismans made of orc skulls and tatters of orc banners claimed in battle, the Crimson Fists display their victories against their foes with macabre pride. Clad in deep blue armor, trimmed with crimson and white markings, the chapter's armorials are among the most reserved of all chapters of the Adeptus Astartes. Their proud sigil of a crimson fist, clenched across a black field adorning their left pauldron, their proud heraldry symbolizes their heritage as successors of the Imperial Fists, whilst honoring the Great Father, Alexis Pollux. Steeped in the tradition of Rogal Dorn's ritual cutting of his palms and those of his recruits before clasping them to share their unity in blood, the Crimson Fists uphold the bond first forged by their gene-sire. Denoting their rank with unique conventions to the chapter, Scout Marines, while attributed with red gauntlets, trim their handguards with blue to signify their lack of attaining their namesake. Every battle brother of the senior companies paints their left gauntlet alike to their chapter icon, while each veteran of the Crimson Fists also coat their right gauntlet with blood red to signify their membership of the elite Crusade Company. Stern Guard veterans of the First Company paint their helmets white, whilst lieutenants mark their helmets with a red stripe centered on their helmet. Otherwise conservative in their heraldic markings, the Crimson Fists adhere to the Codex Astartes in their methods of identifying their battlefield roles and squad identifiers. Their right pauldron bears their role as battle line, close support, fire support, veteran, or command, each centered upon a crimson roundel. White High Gothic numerals are stenciled on the center of their battlefield role to indicate their squad number, yet the chapter does not signify their company numbers with numerals. Trimming their armor pauldrons with varying colors to denote their companies, each company captain also garners a unique title and are responsible for unique roles within the chapter. The 1st Battle Company mark their pauldrons with white and are led by their current Master of Crusades, Ishmael Acario. Known as the Crusade Company, the elite vanguard of the chapter charges into battle at full strength of 128 Astartes in only the most fraught of battles. The 2nd Battle Company, the Shield Wall, mark their trim with gold and are led by the Master of the Shield, Stefan Hyost. The Bulwark against the Darkness, the 2nd Battle Company specialize in defensive maneuvers, akin to the legacy of the Imperial Fists. The 3rd Battle Company, the Red Lightning, trim their pauldrons red and are led by the Master of the Line, Faradis Anto. Experts of hit-and-run tactics, the 3rd Company target vulnerable weak points in enemy defenses to allow their allies to further exploit the opponent's battle lines. The 4th Battle Company, the Crimson Lancers, are led by Master of the Charge, Isidore Helios, and mark their trim with green. Known to be brash warriors among their kin, the Crimson Lancers are headstrong warriors, regarded as among the mightiest fighters within the chapter. The 5th Battle Company, the War Riders, trim their pauldrons black and are led by the Master of Steeds, Razel Solano. Charging into battle atop jet bikes and other armored vehicles, the 5th Company are the hammer blow of their chapter and overwhelm their opponents with the treads of war. The 6th Reserve Company, the Iron Guardians, are led by the Master of the Watch, Alejandro Solari, and trim their pauldrons bronze. Analyzing threats to Rin's world and its fleet contingent, The warriors of the 6th Company are astute tacticians focused on defensive maneuvers to preserve their long-suffering chapter. The 7th Reserve Company, the Wardens of Rin, trim their pauldrons purple and are led by the Master of the Gates, Castian Alzonas. The stalwart guardians of Rin's world see to the planetary defenses of their homeworld and coordinate their company with the planetary defense forces. The 8th Reserve Company, the Red Path, are led by the Master of Blades, Gerard Garasso, and trim their pauldrons grey. Experts at close quarters combat, is proficient with melee combat, and are among the greatest duelists of the chapter. The 9th Reserve Company, the Fists of Rin, trim their pauldrons with blue, and are led by the Master of the Siege, Raphael Acastus. Masters of protracted warfare, the 9th Company are relentless in their harrying of dug-in adversaries and fortifications. And finally, the 10th Scout Company, the Wayfinders, are led by the Master of Shadows, Caldemus Ortiz. The lifeblood of future heroes of the chapter, the Scout Marines of the 10th Company obey the commands and guidance of their superiors before proving their worth as warriors, capable of fighting among the many reserve companies. Following in the footsteps of their founder, Alexis Pollux, the Crimson Fists honor the legacy of their legendary Imperial Fist captain with their characteristic level-headed demeanor and effective tactical acumen. Consistently championing the outlined battle stratagems of the Codex Astartes, combined with their adoption of blue ceramite, many detractors of the chapter, including those of their own kin, regard their character more alike to an Ultramarine successor than the vaunted Imperial Fists. Their reverence to the 7th Legion, fervently upheld despite such scrutiny, the Crimson Fists are immensely adaptable to the ever-changing battlefields they are thrust into. Constantly harassed by Orc warbands within the Loki sector, the chapter never wants for targets to hone their skill in combating the Greenskin Tide. Serving with distinction among the ranks of the Death Watch, despite the misfortune of their chapter, the Crimson Fists do not shirk their tithes to the elite Xenos hunters of the Imperium. With some records pointing to Crimson Fists comprising as many as a quarter of several Death Watch kill teams, their preferential treatment by the Ordo Xenos of the Inquisition is well earned. Already renowned as experts at killing their hated foe, the Orc Xenos, every Crimson Fist among the ranks of the Death Watch is a valuable asset to the Chamber Militant of the Ordo Xenos. Considered entitled to unfair privileges by their peers within each kill team, the seconded Crimson Fists nevertheless garner immense favor from the Inquisition for their expertise in dispatching greenskin threats. Reputed to have tithed more Astartes than any other chapter to the Death Watch, the Crimson Fists care not for the envy of their peers, nor slights made against them. Petitioned for aid by the Adeptus Administratum and Inquisition on numerous occasions due to their pedigree as Orc killers, the Crimson Fist heritage of the 7th Legion makes them extremely capable as both an aggressive or defensive force against the Orc Xenos. Adept at slaying other Xenos races, such as the Eldar during the chapter's first recorded engagement in defense of the colony of Uralek Prime, their 9,000-year crusade to cleanse the galaxy of Xenos has made them synonymous with combating such alien threats. Due to their severe losses following the invasion of Rin's world, the chapter focuses primarily on surgical strikes to prevent further casualties to their already beleaguered and understaffed chapter. Yet should the Crimson Fists return to full strength, they shall be the bane of untold Xenos across the stars. When a man dies before his time, how much is truly lost? More than just a life, certainly. A branch withers and bears no more fruit. Futures are erased. Paths closed that can never be reopened. Would his offspring have been saints? Killers? Both? When a man dies before his time, the answers go with him. This begs the question, should not all men be saved?
The Excoriators are a second founding successor chapter of the Imperial Fists. Assigned as among the 20 members of the Astartes Praesus, tasked with guarding the Eye of Terror, the chapter earned much favor for their founding members' defense of the Imperial Palace during the siege of the Throne World. Ever vigilant in their patrols surrounding the Eye of Terror, the excoriators have endured much suffering during their vigil. Revered for their involvement during the War of the Beast, defense of Sirtis Minor, and Abaddon the Despoiler's 13th Black Crusade, this Codex-compliant chapter is resolute in facing the pawns of the ruinous powers. Granting unique honorifics to their Astartes, captains are known as Corpus Captains, champions as Chapter Scourge, first chaplains as Santiarchs, and sergeants as Whips. Masters of well-timed and fluid maneuvers, the chapter seeks to diminish their foes through attrition, whilst minimizing their own casualties. Caring not for superficial trappings nor aesthetic blemishes, the chapter is pragmatic in their maintenance of arms and armor. Ritually scarring their flesh in order to absolve their past sins through pain, their rites of castigation and donning of Dawn's mantle are a means to attain spiritual communion with their Primarch, Rogul Dawn. Settling grievances through trials by the blade, no matter the rank of an Astartes, every one of their kindred may challenge any of their peers to resolve their disputes, but shall not be concluded until drawing first blood from their opponent's face. Observed by their chaplains to maintain order through their contest, they shall record the outcome and inscribe them within their chapter's records. Reverent of each pockmark and dent upon their armor, these stoic warriors cherish every scar and mark incurred from battle. Clad in white ceramite, paired with silver trim and chest aquillas, each Astartes designates their tactical role with dark red paint on their right pauldron. The symbol of their chapter, a scarlet gauntlet clutching 2 yellow lightning bolts in a closed fist atop a field of ivory, emulates their primogenitor's iconography and is derived from their lost ancient stigmata battle standard. Championing survival over costly advances or glorious last stands, their methods have proven effective in retaining their chapter's legacy.
The Angels in Carmine are a second founding successor chapter of the Blood Angels. The most aloof of all chapters of the Blood, their arrogance is derived from their relentless eternal crusade, waged with no relent nor reprieve. Said to be active in the most concurrent campaigns of any Space Marine chapter, the zealous fury of the Angels in Carmine is attributed to the pure warrior spirit of their Primarch. Few can match the plaudits nor battle honours of the chapter, though by virtue of their endless warring, the cost incurred for such glories is high. Their fervour preventing their recuperation nor reinforcement between battles, the fires of war swiftly weed out unworthy new initiates within their ranks. Seen to be a method to harness and stave off their gene flaw, other observers believe this method of warfare is done solely to thin their Death Company to reasonable levels of deployment. Rarely at full strength, as attrition erodes their forces, their Death Company exceeds any of their contemporaries. Said to be no fewer than 30 Astartes at any given time, it is unclear if this is due to their high rates of curse affliction or the sheer stubborn survivability of their Death Company. Never recorded to have rejected a request for aid, the Angels in Carmine clad in their red armour trimmed with black and bearing a yellow aquila symbolises their noble yet furious countenance. Their Death Company and Sanguinary Guard bedecked in alabaster white with black trim, all bear the sigil of a red droplet with ebon wings proudly on their armour. Relatively Codex compliant in their structure, the Angels in Carmine follow the example of their Blood Angels primogenitor. Reinforced with Primaris Space Marines, it is the hope of the Imperium that with such fresh and flawless recruits, the Angels in Carmine can continue to conduct their relentless campaigns without the gene curse costing them their glories. The Angels Sanguine are a second founding chapter of the Blood Angels. Crucial in purging the forces of chaos invading from the Eye of Terror, these examples of the Blood are noted for their heroism and nobility. Refusing to remove their hooded helmets to those outside their chapter, the Angels Sanguine invite suspicion and misgivings for their secrecy. Comprised of twice the librarians of any chapter of the Blood, many Imperial forces speculate to their deeds made within their catacombs beneath their fortress monastery of Barlas Trine. Partially compliant in structure to the Codex Astartes, alike to their Blood Angels compatriots, the warriors clad in halved red and black ceramite
wear their symbol of a white skull centered on red wings proudly. Utilizing white paint to mark their squad specialties on their right pauldron, black Gothic numerals are centered on their squad symbol, with their company number emblazoned on their right knee. Cherishing their artifact, the Grail of Angels above all, each sanguinary high priest has consumed the blood of their Primarch to allow for its continued rejuvenation. Initiates of the chapter must drink from the Grail in order to ascend as true Angel Sanguine and partake in absorbing the essence of their Gene-Sire. Though rumours persist that their bloodline has been tainted by the rabble of Barlas Trine, they nonetheless remain a stalwart chapter of the Angel. The Angels Vermilion are a second founding chapter of the Blood Angels. Originating from the 9th chapter of the Blood Angels Legion during the Horus Heresy, their involvement in the scouring of the Nostramo sector and pillaging of the Night Lord's vessel, Shroud of Eventide, and subsequent transformation into their own flagship, Crimson Intent, belies their capable and resourceful nature. A reclusive and solitary chapter, the Angels Vermilion refuse to cooperate nor aid their kindred chapters. Spurning all offers of brotherhood from the Angels of the Blood, the chapter's isolation stems from their intent to bear the gene flaws of their Primarch alone. Threatening to reveal the Red First and Black Rage to the wider Imperium should their boundaries be crossed, the primogenitor of their chapter and their Lord Commander, Dante, bids all to keep a wide berth from such a stubborn and volatile chapter. Exemplary warriors all, despite their antisocial tendencies, their banishing of the greater demon, Agfrax Raphael, on the world of Parnasium and relief of the world of Catandril Temple Siege are among the few records willingly given by the chapter. Residing on the world of Coronal, its varied landscapes of vast deserts, ice caps, jungle canyons, and a vast cobalt ocean, its single continent is flanked by greenery, cut into by 5 winding rivers. Their fortress monastery of Bloodspike, standing at 1,500 feet tall, juts into the heavens as befitting the half of the Angels of Death. Its peak topped with a hooded golden angel, its bowed and haloed visage oversees the domain of the Angels Vermilion, as ocean winds buffet the energy shield of the Bloodspike's defenses. Partially Codex compliant alike to their primogenitor chapter, their dark red armor trimmed with black and emblazoned with a yellow Aquila or Imperialis bear striking similarity to the Angels in Carmine. Their chapter symbol depicting a winged drop of blood atop a bear's skull symbolizes their duty to slay the enemies of the Angel and preserve his bloodline. Routinely feeding upon mortals to stave off the affliction of the Red First, very few of its Astartes fall prey to their gene curse each year and forestall the inevitable black rage of its Astartes for decades. Ashamed of their flaw, the Angels Vermilion seek atonement for their methods of staving off their affliction, and as such devote themselves to wars of penitence. Engaging in brief skirmishes and battles that shall never be recorded in the annals of history, the Angels Vermilion believe that vainglory, alike to their primogenitor, blinds the disciplines of Sanguinius to their true nature and purpose. Believing their Primarch to be cursed, the Angels Vermilion do not hold the Great Angel in the same regard as their peers, for in their mind, he had doomed all Blood Angel successors to a terrible fate with his death. Knowing themselves to be monsters of war, the chapter embraces the era of darkness in order to feed themselves to the flames of war to keep the light of the galaxy burning. Conducting the Sorrowing, each 5 solar decades, wherein the Astartes painlessly drain the blood from mortal labor serfs of their homeworld of Coronal, the bodies of their victims are flensed of flesh. Cleaning their bones and interring them within the chapel of the Isle of Martyrs, those that sacrifice their lives to the chapter are forever honored and treated with the utmost respect. Bathing in the collected blood of their harvest, a single sanguinary priest opens his veins to pour the essence of Sanguinius into their bounty, and with his death, store the collected vitae for use in battle as nourishment. Knowing their spoils to be brought at the cost of countless innocents, the Sorrowing is a necessary evil of the chapter, in order to enable the longevity and battle readiness of their Astartes. Their ritual discovered by High Chaplain of the Blood Angels, Herion, during 428.M41 during his investigation of a lost refugee vessel of Dovar. Chapter Master Chald warned the High Chaplain that should he reveal their secret, the Angels Vermilion shall reveal their gene curse of the blood to the Inquisition. Should the Angels Vermilion perish, they shall take all their peers down with them. Despite the risk, Herion relayed his findings to Lord Commander Dante, yet knowing the fallout should he act further, Dante ordered all chapters of the Blood to shun the Angels Vermilion forevermore and never accept their petitions for aid. Regardless of their fractured relationship to their primogenitor, a contingent of the Angels Vermilion aided the chapters of the Blood during the devastation of Baal, led by Captain Fen. Their force of 112 warriors, though initially refused to fight by their side, would begrudgingly be accepted to join the fold in repelling the Great Devourer. Revered by the Chamber Militant of the Ordo Xenos, the Death Watch, the Angels Vermilion serve with dignified and revered service, yet make every attempt to not cooperate with contingents of their brother chapters. Due to several members of the Blood Angels chapters serving as senior members of the Jericho Reach contingent of the Death Watch, the Angels Vermilion refuse to serve within such jurisdictions. Their clandestine nature and fell rituals preserving their numbers as they continue to purge the void of the Imperium's enemies. The Blood Drinkers are a second founding chapter of the Blood Angels. Founded following the Great Civil War of the Horus Heresy, despite their sinister title, the chapter maintains good relations and an exemplary record among the ranks of the Astartes. Retaining immense bonds of loyalty with chapters such as the Crimson Fists, Howling Griffins and Nova Marines, their intervention during the devastation of Baal has only further bolstered their honorable reputation. Refusing to conceal their bloodlust and embracing their need to quench their thirst, their rituals and temperament have seemingly allowed the chapter to control their gene floor. Clad in carnelian red with golden yellow icons on their breastplate, they bear the icon of their chapter, a droplet of black blood descending into an ebon chalice with pride. Adorning their right pauldron with Codex-compliant squad markings with black low-Gothic numerals to indicate their squad number, their pauldron trim adheres to the color-coding standards of the Codex Astartes. Their sanguinary priests coating their right side of their armor white in its entirety, they also bear a vertical yellow stripe down the center of their helmets. Yet beneath the facade, the chapter has come close to extinction on occasions, such as the 37th millennium, wherein many of their initiates succumb to the Black Rage, instantly with their ascension into Astartes. The chapter's revered saint, Holos, set forth to find a cure for their affliction, and after witnessing a divinely induced dream, resolved to climb the mount of his chapter's homeworld of San Guisiga. Upon Calicium, the mightiest of the planet's volcanic peaks, Holos fought the lord of the Xenos Astorgai, Lotan. Casting off his battered and broken power armor and slaying the Xenos, Holos was visited by a splendid golden angel, which imparted the secret to staving off his chapter's curse. Returning solar weeks later to his fortress monastery, Brother Holos imparted the angel's wisdom to his chapter, to much uproar. Dividing his chapter into the Blood Schism, Holos's return, despite its initial turmoil with time, ended the madness of the Black Rage within his chapter. Now known as the Rite of Holos, their secretive ritual allows for the Blood Angels to achieve a balance between nobility and savagery that is the envy of their peers, but incurs a heavy toll. Assembling all battle brothers within the Hall of Life of their reclusium, the warriors dressed in scarlet and black are stripped of their rank insignias. With rank of no import, during the ritual, the chaplains and sanguinary priests watch as labor serfs willingly offer their vitae to the assembled Astartes. Drained of blood, whilst drained, the serfs' blood channels into the stone floor of the chamber, forming a droplet of crimson. Enacting their blood tithe by drinking the collected blood, the reclusiarch of the chapter leads them in prayers of atonement as they quench their thirst. Reaffirming their oaths, the blood drinkers beg for forgiveness from one another for the cost of their reprieve as the Techmarines of the chapter take a sample of their own blood to offer to the machine spirits of their weapons and armor. Believing the monster within to be unkillable, they resolve instead to tame it and sate its thirst to postpone their own demise. In truth, the Angel of the Peak of Calicium was a demon of the warp, cited to be the Vizier of Tzeentch, Kairos Fateweaver. Bargaining his kin's reprieve for the ability to replace the visions of his chapter's death company from those of Horus's fratricide to the pact made upon Calicium. Perceiving the Black Rage as a blessing rather than a curse, the Blood Drinkers who have seen the vision of Kairos have each in turn been offered a compact with the forces of chaos. All have refused such a poison chalice, yet Kairos Fateweaver needs only one Blood Drinker to utter his compliance in order to claim the chapter for his own purposes. The true fate of the contract known only to the Reclusiarchs of the chapter. Their fate is balanced on a knife's edge. Strictly adherent to the edicts of the Codex Astartes, the Blood Drinkers by all appearances are the paragon to which the chapters of the Blood should aspire. Though looks can be deceiving, and deeds undone by the smallest misstep, and it is unclear when they shall take their first step in their fall from grace.
Only in death does duty end. That is the favoured axiom of the rulers of man and the craven orators who speak on their behalf. For our sins, we too have passed on such falsehoods to our own, instilling in them the notion that death is the end of all things. We were wrong about the nature of our duty. We were wrong about death's place in the order of things. It was only the edge of the madness, drenched in the blood of brother and foe, that we learned the error of our thinking. For only in death does duty begin. It matters not in what colour we daub our armour, or which symbol we carve on our pauldrons. Our purpose remains what it was intended to be. We will kill the enemies of mankind, and with blade and fire protect the Emperor's domain. We are harbingers of death, angels of vengeance, terrors of flesh.
The Adeptus Astartes are a terrible force to be reckoned with. Molded to be the greatest warriors to ever grace the stars by the Master of Mankind, each chapter embodies virtues and traits such as honor, sacrifice, and vengeance. Yet not all of the Angels of Death have a reputation which could be regarded as noble, and one among them is infamous across the length and breadth of the galaxy as wrathful, butchery incarnate. The savage yet dutiful sons of the great angel, the Flesh Tearers. In the wake of the Horus Heresy, the catastrophic civil war had proven the calamity of the unfettered strength of the Astartes, should they be turned from the path of light and delivered into the clutches of chaos. Sundering of the Legiones Astartes as a precaution for further destruction, Lord Commander and Primarch of the Ultramarines, Rabute Guilliman, devised a new organizational structure to limit the Angels of Death from once again threatening the Imperium. Drafting the Codex Astartes, the outlines for the new order of war, each of the legions would be broken down into smaller chapters comprised of 1,000 Space Marines. The time of rebirth had begun, and each of the storied defenders of humanity remaining loyal to the Imperium formed new brotherhoods derived from their gloried legions of old. Yet among all the legions, many retained the leadership of their Primarch, with but a handful still grieving for the loss of their Genesire. The Iron Hands had long languished due to the death of their Primarch, Ferrus Manus, yet during the final battle to destroy the War Master of Chaos, another vaunted son of the Emperor had been slain. Sanguinius, Primarch of the Blood Angels, had fought valiantly to oppose his corrupted brother, Horus Lupercal, and regardless of his foresight knowing his death to be inevitable, had sacrificed his life to stave off the darkness. The Loyalists had won, yet with the fresh scars of victory etched into their skin and souls, none incurred more suffering than the Scions of the Blood. Their father's death had allowed for the Master of Mankind to vanquish his fallen protege, yet had also incurred grievous injury during their duel. Among the captains of the Harrowed and Mourning Legion, Nasir Amit of the 5th Company looked upon the tattered glories of his legion and spat upon the notion that their brotherhood should be further diminished. Reluctantly accepting the appointment as chapter master of the newly founded successor chapter, the Flesh Tearers, the remnants of the 5th Company under the banner of the moniker of their ruthless leader pursued the fleeing traitor legions with slaughter foremost on their minds. Sharpening their flaying knives and preparing their armaments during their voyage aboard their acting fortress monastery, the battle barge Victus, the Flesh Tearers demanded oceans of traitor blood for the death of their beloved liege. Crusading for years, in their efforts to purge the galaxy clean of their duplicitous and malevolent former comrades, the Flesh Tearers left scores of butchered foes in their path and began to earn their reputation as the most untamed and brutal warriors of the Imperium. Their numerous campaigns across 100 worlds causing untold misery to both the wicked and innocents of the Void alike, the reputation of the most bloodthirsty scions of Sanguinius spiraled into notorious, frenzied massacres. Several Astartes chapters refused to cooperate with the volatile butchers, including their compatriot Sons of the Blood. For 2 centuries the chapter remained mobile, until Chapter Master Nasir Amit resolved to find a world to call their own. Locating a nigh inhospitable death world to the galactic west, Amit proclaimed during his declaration of conquest during 238.M31, "We named it Cretacia, from the ancient Baal Sanskrit meaning birth of wrath. Like us, Cretacia was a consummate killer. Violence lives in its very air. Its winds were the lash of a terrible beast, striking out to flay us from the skies, its clouds void dark phantoms, whose acid tears stripped the crimson from our warplate. Death met us at every turn, tested our resolve, and measures our strength. We were as the angels from the old Terran legend, trapped in hell itself. Yet for all our trials, Cretacea's wrath was far from spent." Its surface inhabited by colossal beasts, magma geysers, and electrical storms, the regular tectonic shifts of its crust erupting with lava, boasted only a handful of human settlements, populated by feral yet hardy people. The Neolithic warrior culture of the humans proving to be a reliable source of recruits to the chapter, the Flesh Tearers replenished their reduced strength. Their tendency to succumb to the Black Rage intensifying in orders of magnitude over time, the chapter staved off its influence for only 200 cycles. By the time of the 41st millennium, only 4 combat-ready companies would remain unafflicted by the Rage, or lying cold in their graves, for the chapter's tendency to shred their opponents to ribbons yielded among the highest casualty rates of any chapter. Regularly questioned by the Emperor's Holy Inquisition in order to ascertain their purity of cause and efficacy, actions such as the Kalan massacre of the 36th millennium only worsened their relations with the wider Imperium. Under the watchful eye of the Ordo Hereticus, despite their long-standing service of over 10 millennia, during 837.M41, Inquisitor Corvin Herald boarded the flagship Victus to seek an audience with their current chapter master, Gabriel Seth. Enquiring as to the events of the Shrine World of Lucid Prime, regarding their confrontation made against the revered Primogenitor chapter, the Space Wolves, reports from the Vilca Fenrica cited their extermination of civilians and exhibited signs of chaos corruption. A decoy in truth, the true Inquisitor Herald had infiltrated the Victus in search of proof pertaining to their gene flaw. Finding an Astartes chained within the bowels of the vessel, fully surrendered to the Black Rage, the Inquisitor would be discovered by Chapter Nepolis and captured. Librarian Balthiel linked Herald's mind to that of Gabriel's and forced him to endure the full measure of the Red Thirst within Seth for mere moments. Driving the Inquisitor to the brink of insanity, Seth explained that he was not worthy to judge his men for the burden they carried, for they lived with such all-consuming fury every moment of their lives. Allowing Herald to depart the Victus, Seth removed Corvin's rosette of office and decreed him unworthy of serving the Inquisition. For the Angels of Death, though not beyond reproach, would not be besmirched by mewling bureaucrats or conceited mortals. Despite their fractious relationship with their Primogenitor chapter, the Blood Angels, the long-standing feud between the brash sons of Amit and ostentatious ranks of the Lord of Angels would soon be tested. During 988.M41, a tendril of the Tyranid Hive Fleet Leviathan endangered the Cryptus Shield. The first line of defense against an invasion of the Blood Angels' homeworld, every planet within the Cryptus system perished as the maw of the Great Devourer consumed all life within. Rallying as many successor chapters of the Blood as possible to defend the holy site of their entombed Genesire, and the ancestral homeworld of the Great Angel, Lord Commander Dante beseeched his kin to defend Baal. The first to heed the call to action, the Flesh Tearers met with the Blood Angels and set aside their personal grudges for the greater good of their chapters. Seeking redemption in the presence of their peers, the Flesh Tearers fought valiantly to defend the Great Angel's home. Entrusted by Lord Dante with the ancient relic, the Reliquary of Ammit, within the golden stasis field capsule crafted by the Flesh Tearer, within contained the last remaining feather of the Great Angel. Said to be taken from the war zone of the Siege of Terra, the presence of the Holy Quill imbued Seth's warriors with divine peace and prevented their ranks from succumbing to their gene flaws. Scarcely 400 Astartes in number at the beginning of the Krypton War, 5 understrength companies fought within the war zones of Armageddon, far from the devastation unfolding. Hoping to die as martyrs of the blood and vindicate their long besmirched legacy as mindless killers, the Flesh Tearers led by Gabriel Seth were now relieved of their first for vitae. Reconciling their differences, Dante and Seth commanded the final defensive maneuvers to preserve the Arx Angelicum and the priceless soil of Baal. The Swarm Lord of the High Fleet critically wounded Lord Commander Dante, and in their moment of inevitable defeat, an unforeseen force of avenging angels joined the fray. Rabute Guilliman, the returned son of the Emperor at the head of his gargantuan Indomitus Crusade fleet, unleashed innumerable warriors clad in all manner of heraldries upon the battlefield. Laying waste to the Tyranids, warriors clad in unknown markings of power armor and wielding armaments of immense technological brilliance purged the Tyranids from the surface of Baal. With the war won in the name of the Imperium, Lord Commander Rabute Guilliman appointed Commander Dante as the Regent of Imperium Nihilus, due to the Cicatrix Maledictum or Great Rift carving the galaxy in half. Bestowing each successor of the Blood new Primaris Space Marines to replenish their ranks. Though seemingly stronger and purer than their firstborn peers, Seth looked at his new warrior breed with disgust. Accepting the Primaris within his own chapter, Gabriel knew in his heart that their seeming immunity to the call of the Red First and Black Rage would prove antithetical to the Flesh Tearers' embodiment and harnessing of their flaws. Observing such novice Astartes, raised far from the culture of Cretacia or even Baal, these Ultramarines in all but name would need to undergo drastic changes in order to prove themselves worthy to bear their heraldry. Yet only time will tell if such Space Marines are capable of upholding their duty to the Angel and earning the respect of the Guardian of Rage. Refusing to imbibe their neophytes with blood transfusions alike to their former traditions as Blood Angels, using the relic known as the Red Grail, many scholars of Imperial history believe the eschewing of this practice to have exacerbated their gene flaw of the Red First and Black Rage. Moving from warzone to warzone during their initial 200 years as a crusading fleet, the Flesh Tearers had been exiled in all but record by the Blood Angels from their own territories, and as such required a base of operations of their own. Cretacia proved to be a perfect recruitment ground for such feral killers, and with time, mastering their hunts against the colossal beasts of the planet and induction of fresh initiates into their order. The population of Cretacia, inordinately athletic and with excellent instincts for survival, the Flesh Tearers could not have hoped for a more fitting breed of humans to induct into their ranks. Despite their obvious signs as a civilization brought low via societal collapse and the loss of spoken language, these primitive souls were taken first as prisoners of the chapter, before being subjected to examination tests of physiological, mental, and spiritual purity. Respectably pure in their genetic biology, the Flesh Tearers began to implant their new subjects with gene seed and reversed their communicative deficiencies through indoctrination. Fortifying their new fortress monastery and embarking upon their nearby vicinities of space, the ascended warriors of Cretacia soon proved to be a boon for the safety of the sector. Despite their reinvigorated and replenished state, it would not take long for the looming threat of the Black Rage to ravage their numbers, and as the millennia passed, their genetic purity began to wane. Said to be hastened by a genetic mutation combined with their martial traditions, no chapter of the Blood has suffered more than the Flesh Tearers in surrendering its battle brothers to the madness of the Rage. Rejecting the insanguination ceremonies of their primogenitor, the Flesh Tearers' lack of their Primarch's salving blood causes them to be consumed with an endless battle to deny their thirst and reject the delights of slaughter. Said to be gifted a potential lifespan in excess of any of their Astartes peers, such a boon is mitigated by their low life expectancy due to conflict. Coming close to extinction during the 41st millennium, under the stewardship of their current chapter master Gabriel Seth, the chapter has determined to fight and die as valiant warriors before the clutches of the Rage lead them to commit further ruin. Now reinforced with a stock of Primaris Space Marines, the seeming immunity of their reinforcements, though said to offset their losses to the clutches of the Gene Floor, have yet to be proven beyond doubt. Conducting nightly bloodletting rituals to purify their souls, the Sons of Ammit do little to stave off the call to gorge on blood, and appointment to the ever-burgeoning Death Company seems inevitable to many. Increasing the appointment of Battle Brothers to the role of apothecaries to aid in recovering their often unsalvageable gene seed, their tendency to charge headfirst into violent melees often causes the slain to lose recoverable organs to chain blades and explosives. Due to their induction of vast quantities of Primaris Space Marines into the fold, the Flesh Tearers once again after long millennia field full-strength battle and reserve companies. Half of their number of firstborn Marine stock, many veterans of the devastation of Baal field officer positions within the chapter and watch over their Primaris kin for signs of the Gene Floor. Prior to the defense of Baal, the chapter divided its elite First Company veterans among each of their understrength companies, forming so-called Vanguard Strike Forces, comprised of 3 tactical squads, 1 assault squad, 1 Vanguard veteran squad, and a single Furioso dreadnought, proved effective in staving off the forces of the Great Devourer. With the remainder of such veteran survivors returning to the positions of the First Company, it has proven deadlier than ever. The appointment to the chapter's Death Company, seemingly inevitable to all veterans of the chapter, proven too deadly to die in battle. With grim resolve, even the most junior of Astartes take no heed for their own self-preservation in combat, should it provide a more glorious end than their descent into madness. Unlike their peers such as the Blood Angels, the Flesh Tearers do not grant merciful death to those brothers who survive their first combat within the Death Company. High Chaplain Apollos binds the Death Company and looks upon such venerable survivors as the purest state a Flesh Tearer can become, and as such, recaptures and redeploys such rabid warriors to unleash Sanguinius' judgment upon the battlefield. Confronting the High Chaplain of the Blood Angels, Astaroth the Grim, for slaying a Death Company of the Flesh Tearers without sanction, Gabriel Seth allows none to cull his men, no matter their sanity, for even in such a feral state, they shall fight in the name of the Angel. Contained within the strike cruiser, Death's Cowl, none save the Chapter Master and High Chaplain of the Flesh Tearers know the full extent of Death Company Astartes still in service. Yet under the watchful eye of the Death Cowl's commanding officer, Chaplain Zuphius, they shall be unleashed whenever called upon to earn redemption in slaughter. It does not take a genius of military strategy to assume the methods used by the Flesh Tearers in combat, for if anything, the Sons of Ammit are the epitome of a blunt yet effective tool. Nuance is among the least respected virtues of the Sons of Cretacia, for each and every engagement is made with the implicit threat of the Black Rage spilling forth from any number of the Battle Brothers at any given time. Independent in nature, each of the battle companies prior to their reinforcement of Primaris Space Marines trained with cross-disciplines to better serve the chapter. Each warrior may change from tactical to assault to squad or devastator role from skirmish to skirmish, should it be required of him, and as such the veterans of the chapter have a wealth of experience to draw from. Though trained to the standard of all contemporaries of the Angels of Death, the Flesh Tearers seldom use certain tactics and strategies in battle, due to the ever-changing nature of their battle lines. Melee combat championed above all methods of war by the chapter, the sight of a company of Flesh Tearers brandishing chainswords and axes in full charge is among the most terrifying sights to behold. Planning for outbreaks of the Black Rage throughout their advances, the senior officers of the chapter must account for contingencies of outbursts of unforeseen friendly fire and carnage every step of their campaigns. The vast majority of their ranks composed of assault marines, the best laid plans of the captains of the chapter can be undone in an instant, and as such, the fielding of Devastator Marines is largely ineffective. Even the tactical units within the chapter are undermined by outbursts of the Red First, causing valuable armaments unbefitting a berserker to be relinquished and lost in battle. The sergeants of the chapter holding their forces within long-range fire only reluctantly. Their long experience of seeing their ranks descend into bloody rampages precludes their strategies from being too far from direct melee range. Despite the inflexibility of their battle doctrine, there are no chapters of the Astartes imbued with fury alike to the Flesh Tearers, and it is feasible that none among the Angels of Death can match their ferocity or capacity for butchery in close quarters. The majority of their vehicles being rhinos and razorbacks, all other methods of armored warfare cannot compete with the ability to transport hordes of frenzied killers to the front line. Veterancy is not a position to aspire to within the chapter, for the most heroic and martially skilled warriors are rarely destined to have a glorious death before the call of the Black Rage claims them. On occasion, such old ones are preserved within stasis sarcophagi and dreadnoughts to preserve their martial genius and stave off the call of the Rage. Their time served as dreadnoughts short-lived, such old ones are deployed within the ranks of the Death Company, and with their death, free up the use of the dreadnought chassis to contain the next venerated war hero before his inevitable downfall. Screaming a war cry unique to their chapter in battle, the amplified shouted chant of the chapter is so primal in its nature that their enemies are stunned into submission before being ripped limb from limb. Cherishing the legacy of their chapter within their hearts, the inescapable decline of their glories has haunted the minds of each chapter master to inherit the leadership of the Flesh Tearers. Cursed beyond all measure of their kindred chapters, the Flesh Tearers alone truly understand the depths of madness that their gene flaw incurs. Embracing the notion that their legacy is destined to either extinction in a violent yet righteous moment of glory, or slowly diminish with prolonged doomed attempts to shoulder their burden, the fate of the chapter has been called into question with the introduction of Primaris Space Marines. Due to their fortitude in rejecting the Red First and Black Rage, many including Chapter Master Gabriel Seth see such inheritors of the Flesh Tearers' hard-won and maligned glories as unworthy. For what is a Flesh Tearer bereft of disciplined and controlled wrath? Surely just another chapter of the Avenging Sun, masquerading as a true scion of the Great Angel. Their nature molded through suffering and prevailing against the bleakest of toil, these new upstart pretenders have much to prove in order to be accepted as true sons of Ammit. Regardless of their newly appointed and stringent believers in the methods of the Lord of Ultramar, the Flesh Tearer veterans shall not deny their savage methods, nor allow their green initiates to forego their participation in their methods of waging war. Constantly hounded by agents of the Inquisition and derided for their purges, the Flesh Tearers shall never seek forgiveness for their means of purging heretics across the stars. Persecution forever at their heels, with their intervention of the defense of Baal, their strengthened alliance with the region of Imperium Nihilus has regardless brought the chapter a temporary reprieve. Among the most striking warriors of the Angels of Death, their panoplies exemplify their fell reputation and savage nature. Maroon red paint covers their torso, arms and legs, whilst deepest jet black contrasts starkly upon their helmets, backpacks and pauldrons. Designating their battle line role with white symbols upon their right pauldron, alike to their Blood Angels peers, symbols such as skulls and blood droplets are imposed on the design, alike to the outline structure of their primogenitor. However, unlike the Blood Angels, rather than placing symbols upon their right knee plates to distinguish their squad, the Flesh Tearers utilize simple, low Gothic numerals. Librarians and Tech Marines of the chapter adopt the conventions of the Codex Astartes by painting their armor blue and Mars red respectively. Similarly, the chaplains of the Order couple their skull helmet designs with purest black skeletal armor. The symbol of the chapter, a serrated blade centered with a single drop of red blood, symbolizes the chain fist first carried into battle by their founder, Nasir Ammit. Its design now a symbol capable of striking fear into the hearts of even the ranks of traitor Astartes. Any who gaze upon such a promise of violence shall pray for a swift, if not merciful, death. Here come the red, they stalk you while you sleep. Here come the red, your blood do they seek. Here come the red, to your soul they lay claim, and you'll never be seen in the sunlight again.
The Sons of Sanguinius are a second founding chapter of the Blood Angels. Originally sired from the ranks of the former Legion's 6th Company, their bonds of fealty and trust to their primogenitor chapter is among the strongest. As their title suggests, the Sons of Sanguinius uphold the memory and glories of their Primarch above all duties and have earned a glorious reputation. Choosing not to deny their bloodlust nor innate genetic flaws, the Sons of Sanguinius harness their rage to best serve the objectives of their campaigns. Utterly zealous in their purges of heresy throughout the galaxy, the chapter shows a callous disregard for civilian lives during their prosecutions of the wicked. Adhering closely to the Codex Astartes, alike to their primogenitor chapter, by adhering to its strictures, the Sons of Sanguinius use such disciplines to control their thirst for blood. Strangely, among the chapters of the Blood, the Sons of Sanguinius do not maintain a Death Company, nor do their elite First Company utilize any suits of Terminator armor, due to their armory only containing a dozen of such working suits. Preferring to deploy assault bikes and jump packs rather than heavy munitions, the Sons of Sanguinius also field fewer Devastator Marines than their contemporaries, with only 2 squads in each of their battle companies. Slow and steady in their approach regarding an abundance of tactical squads, the chapter limits outbursts of uncontrolled violence through measured and sound strategic formations. Though possessing librarian positions within their ranks who conduct scholarly duties required of their position, none within the chapter utilize psychic powers due to their distrust of such phenomena as tools of chaos. Recording the chapter's deeds and records of their mightiest heroes, the librarian also study the ancient texts of their archives in order to memorize holy chants, verses, and battle hymns. Supporting their brethren through such verse during battle, they are an inspiring presence despite their lack of psychic powers. Maintaining 30 veteran warriors within the ranks of their sanguinary guard, each elite member of the cadre is powerful enough to match a full squadron of his peers in martial prowess. Though their sanguinary priests function alike to their primogenitor of the Blood Angels, their chaplains champion their sole duty to prevent their kin's surrender to their thirst and rage. Recruited from the most somber and depressed members of their chapter, the chaplains supplant their sadness with hatred for heretics, apostates, and traitors. The other duties befitting a typical chapter of the Blood are the responsibility of the sanguinary priests, led by the most senior-ranking chaplain, the Reclusiarch. Conducting a ritual known as the Feast prior to each and every campaign, the Astartes of the Sons of Sanguinius gorge themselves on blood and vitae to stave off their gene curses. Sacrificing a single Astartes, proven valiant above all his peers, the lifeblood of such a promising scion of the chapter fills the gold chalices of the sanguinary priests as each of his kin drink a sample of his blood. Spreading his courage throughout each and every warrior of the chapter, should this ritual be observed by their peers and be seen as an extreme ritual, its efficacy in staving off the Red Thirst is beyond question. Painting a piece of their battle armor black to symbolize their mourning of the death of their Primarch, the Sons of the Great Angel know in their heart that their deeds and valor shall never be observed by their liege. The most morose of their kin prefer to paint larger portions of their armor black, with a select few coating the entirety of their armor alike to a Death Company Astartes. Said to have seen through the eyes of their Primarch in their dreams, these sullen killers take to the field of battle with bloody and relentless focus. Clad in terracotta red-hued tones of ceramite trimmed with black, the chapter identify their squad speciality on their right pauldron with white paint. Company markings are superimposed on their tactical designation, whilst their helmet color further defines their role. White helmets symbolize tactical marines, bone for assault marines, light blue for devastators, and black for veterans. Those who have proven especially brutal in their acts of war are known as blooded, and mark the mouthpiece of their helmet with red paint.
Adopting a unique heraldry system for use on their right knee plate, each Astartes bear a heraldic symbol of differing colours to signify their squad, such as white skulls, red blood drops, or an angelic wing. Wearing their chapter icon with pride on their left pauldron, the golden skeletal chalice overflowing with blood, flanked by angel wings, epitomizes their uncompromising pledge to serve in the great angel's name. Preserving his spirit within the hearts of all the successor chapters of the blood, the sons of Sanguinius give new life to the angel through deeds made by his descendants. Though whether these uncompromising descendants of the great angel can continue to stave off their gene flaw is a question yet to be answered.
The flesh is weak, but it can be made strong, unified with the machine. The mind, that we cannot fix. The Brazen Claws are a second founding successor chapter of the Iron Hands. Derived from the 34th clan company of the Iron 10th, Clan Morrigal, much of the chapter's cultural influences are derived from the infamous Iron Father, Ortek Mor. Though siring his own chapter, the Red Talons, the blood-wrought of the 10th Legion had led the original Brazen Claws company during the era of the Great Crusade and Horus Heresy, their garrison of the Night World of Calivant, sparing their number from the devastation of the Istvan V dropsite massacre. Imbued with the stubborn character of the Gorgon, with their founding into a successor chapter following the Horus Heresy, the Brazen Claws refused to yield even during the most costly of battles. Remorseless warriors, capable of annihilating the most dangerous of foes. Despite centuries of gloried service made in the name of the Imperium, the chapter could not evade disaster forever. Their homeworld of Talos IV, destroyed by the Blood God's thralls during the 41st millennium, the now orphaned chapter embarked upon an imperial crusade, fueled by righteous vengeance. Destroying Chaos outposts surrounding and even within the Eye of Terror, though the actions of their crusade remain largely unrecorded, their presence during the defense of the fortress worlds of the Cadian Gate epitomizes their staunch combating of the ruinous powers. Venerated for their service during the War of the Beast, Crusade of Steel, Abaddon the Despoiler's 13th Black Crusade, and the Iron Crusade of the Second Relief of Mordian, the deeds of the chapter resound throughout the Imperium. Scornful of any signs of weakness, as is typical of the Sons of the Gorgon, the chapter obsessively replaces their organic appendages in order to prevent age, disease, and frailty from dulling their senses. Clad in quartered blue and red ceramite, the Astartes of the chapter designate their tactical role on their right pauldron with blue paint, imposed with white Gothic numerals to identify their squad number. Veterans of the chapter adopt white helmets, whilst the chapter assign their company as per the strictures of the Codex Astartes, in slight contravention by the colour of the aquillas on their chest. The symbol of their chapter, a red talon upon a field of blue, symbolizes their heritage as descendants of Clan Morrigal and their maimed Iron Lord. The chapter's crusade of vengeance concluded. The losses incurred from their act of penance have been replenished with the introduction of Primara Space Marines into the fold. A portion of their men corrupted by chaos during their campaign, this stoic chapter remains resolute in their efforts to combat the forces of the Immaterium while staving off their fell influence.
And this land shall be yours, that you shall be its masters, and its peoples bow down to you.
The Red Talons are a second founding successor chapter of the Iron Hands. Derived from the clan company of Morrigal, comprised of the former Legion's most unstable and derided members, under the leadership of their founder, Iron Lord Ortek Mor, the chapter has earned a merciless and brutal reputation. Arriving at the Battle of Istvan V during the height of the slaughter, Ortek Mor attempted to breach the traitor blockades in order to save the life of his Primarch, yet failed in the attempt. Breaching their lines, yet incurring massive damage, Moore's Grand Cruiser, the Red Talon, escaped the battle bloody, yet bruised. Fighting the traitors as a band apart from their broken kinsmen, Clan Morgul adopted the moniker of the Red Talons and waged war within the Coronet Deeps by bombarding the world of Gethsemane Colonus. Crushing the Horusite overseers within a mere solar hour, the first great persecution of the Red Talons inflicted a loss of resources for the War Master's rebellion within the plumes of nuclear fire. Accounts of further devastation upon the mining world of Saria Major, Lokuta Station, and Nashe's world point to the clan company's methods, and for the remainder of the Civil War, they would harry the traitor forces. Established as a successor chapter of the Iron Tenth during the Great Scouring, these bloodthirsty and cruel warriors remained as one of the few remnants of the Legion's amassed strength. Venerated for their involvement during the War of the Beast, War of the False Primarch, Draxian Incursion, Gothic War, Battle of Amion, and Orask Wars, their actions have been lauded by the Imperium despite their harsh methods. Clad in arterial red ceramite, adorned with silver chest aquillas, each Astartes marks their tactical role with black paint on their right pauldrons, imposing white High Gothic numerals on such designs to identify their squad. As a Codex-compliant chapter, each warrior outlines their company with the prescribed trim on their pauldrons. The symbol of their chapter, a crimson talon on a black roundel, originates from their clan company of old and the personal heraldry of the Bloodrort's honor guard. Upholding their vendetta against the traitor legions, fueling their desire for vengeance. On several occasions, the chapter has been tasked by the High Lords of Terror with purging renegades of their creed. Their bloody tactics and uncompromising methods of waging war, enough to make even the most loyal scions of the Emperor feel uneasy.
The Aurora Chapter are a second founding successor chapter of the Ultramarines. Once the fourth chapter of the Ultramarines Legion, the Aurorans championed vehicle warfare in excess of their contemporaries. Successful in their defiance against the Orc Xenos during the Battle of Sipra Mundi, their salvation of a populace in excess of millions embellished their visage as gleams of light reflected from their ceramite pauldrons. Their valor made manifest, the title of Aurora was befitting for these valiant sons of Guilliman. Following their involvement of the destruction of the Sons of Horus homeworld, Cophonia, this Aurora chapter continued to endorse armored warfare. Equipped with Land Raiders and Predator tanks in excess to any of their contemporaries, the Aurora chapter are renowned for their overwhelming armored assaults. Collaborating with the Emperor's spears during the Yukari insurrection, the Aurora chapter's pride would be challenged by the Sons of Nemeton. Despite their stalwart battle lines, the battles within Alara's Vale took a toll on both chapters as they incurred heavy casualties. The meticulous planning and strategies of the Aurorans, earning them far more glory than the spears, Captain Tristance of the Arakani balked at the theft of his own venerated chapter's glory. Said to have conducted an honor duel to remove the stain of their rivalry, both chapters claimed victory and continued to fuel their mutual animosity. As open conflict stirred between the chapters, it would be the duty of the Ultramarines to end the grudge, with their judgment in favor of the Aurora chapter ending the squabble. Stating they would never aid in the defense of Macragge should it be imperiled, the feud of the Emperor's spears continues to this day, though no reprisal has been enacted against the Aurorans. Sending cargo vessels to the world of Firestorm, chapter world of the Aurorans, the spears hail each exchange as tributes for their beloved cousins. The ship's hulls filled with seawater and ugly sea creatures known as abyssal vine serpents. This verminous species, of no nutritional value, represents the Emperor's spear's resentment. The honor roll of the Aurora chapter, including the armored assault of Grylos, quelling of the Goru heresy, Zeist campaign, and reconquest of the Forsar sector, the heavily armored assaults of the chapter have garnered praise and envy across the Adeptus Astartes. Their armor painted to a forest green trimmed with gold, Astartes of the chapter designate their squad indicators on their right pauldrons in white. Stenciling black High Gothic numeral squad markings on the center of their squad designations. Alike to all Codex-compliant chapters, the Aurorans follow the prescribed company trim conventions of the Codex Astartes. Sergeants of the chapter utilize red skulls on the brow of their helmets, whilst chaplains wear Rosarius amulets, gifted personally by the Imperium's ecclesiarchy. The symbol of their chapter, the ancient Greek Alpha sigil, turned on its side within a 12-pointed star, is worn proudly on their left pauldron. Manufacturing war vehicles to replenish their losses, their homeworld of Firestorm's manufacturing power rivals even the most efficiently run Mechanicus Forge Worlds. The millions of indentured menial workers toiling day and night to repair, rearm, and replenish the armaments of both newly made and ancient tanks. The guns of the chapter never falling silent as they wage war within the Ultima Segmentum. The Black Consuls are a second founding successor chapter of the Ultramarines. Originally the Ultramarines Legion 72nd chapter, founded by Chapter Master Arias Cordos, the warrior earned the title of the Bane of Lorgar for his victory against the 17th Legion during the Orbsar campaign. Tasked as among the 20 chapters of the Astartes Praesus, charged with patrolling sectors of space around the Eye of Terror, this uncompromising chapter abide the teachings of the Codex Astartes with zealous fervor. Pilgrimaging to the world of Macragge on regular occasions for 10 millennia, the veneration held for the Lord of Ultramar has earned the Black Consuls respect and camaraderie from their primogenitor. Fighting alongside the Ultramarines on countless occasions, their chapter master's position is valued as counsel to the hierarchy of Ultramar. Initially a crusading fleet-based chapter, their fortress monastery, the Noctis Obscurum, perished during the 40th millennium due to the sabotage of the Drukhari. Relocating to the world of Cyclopia, within the Calixus sector, the Black Consuls sought revenge against the Dark Eldar and began a 3th-century crusade to enact reprisal. Across 15 star systems, the wrath of the Black Consuls harried the Drukhari, collapsing a subdimension of the Webway as Xenos blood coated their blades. Brutally efficient and bloody in their favoured method of drop pod assaults, despite the chapter's near extinction during the Siege of Godef during 455.M41, in battle against the Iron Warriors and Wordbearers traitor legions, a contingent of their forces remained within the Jericho Reach. Many of their remaining forces joining the Achilles Crusade during 777.M41. Even when at full strength, the chapter rarely deployed its forces en masse, dispatching small squads to aid Imperial crusades across the stars. These dour warriors nonetheless proved to be stalwart allies to many Space Marine chapters, and for their cooperation received intel and resupply from their grateful cousins. Present during the fall of Cadia, culminating Abaddon the Despoiler's 13th Black Crusade, even at the brink of annihilation, the Black Consuls dispatched 4 battle companies to combat the arch-traitor of the Imperium. With the return of the Avenging Sun and creation of the Primaris Space Marines of Belisarius Cawl, the Indomitus Crusade sent aid to the beleaguered Black Consuls. Replenishing their numbers with hundreds of Primaris Space Marines, Lord Commander Rabute Guilliman repaid the loyalty of his second founding sons and tasked the Black Consuls with the defense of the Segmentum Pacificus. Clad in black power armor, trimmed with gold, the Black Consuls mark their squad designation with white paint on their right pauldron. Centering black High Gothic numerals on the squad designations to identify their squad number. As vehement adherents of the Codex Astartes, the chapter trim their pauldrons using the outlines of the ancient tome. Their sigil of a white eagle's head on a field of black, imposed on their left pauldron, the sight of these spectres of death promises a quick demise to any who oppose the will of the Lord of Ultramar.
All of creation suffers, young ones. Only in accepting our own mortality can we make a difference. Only in bearing the burden of our failures can we find the strength to go on. Only in detachment from glory, or honor, or jealousy, from life itself, can we hope to spare others from grief. We are Doom Eagles, and we are dead already.
The Doom Eagles are a second founding successor chapter of the Ultramarines. Hailing from the world of Garphis II, within its large mountainous peak, their fortress monastery, the Eyrie, resides. Founded by Captain Tullian Aquila of the Ultramarines Legion's 24th Company, the Exitium, their service during the Great Crusade and Horus Heresy specialized in support ordnance and artillery strikes. The stern first chapter master, known to have survived the Battle of Calth when stationed within the city of Ifrica. Though a sergeant at the time of the battle, his survival with only 2 battle brothers by his side saw to his hastened promotion through the ranks. Embracing Tullian Aquila's fatalistic demeanor, with the foundation of the Adeptus Astartes, the veteran captain sought to lead his new chapter into a new age of war, made in the name of protecting the citizens of the Imperium, no matter the cost. Masters of stealth and espionage, every Doom Eagle is instilled with the knowledge of their own fleeting mortality, and take no heed for self-preservation should it facilitate victory. Freed from the shackles of doubt, these courageous and determined warriors are among the staunchest defenders of the Imperium. Exhibiting emotions of depression when not in combat, their piety in fighting in the name of the Emperor, though effective, regardless draws scrutiny from their cousin chapters. Masters of spearhead assaults, favoring gunships and jump packs, these airborne Astartes descend from the heavens and, alike to their title, prove to be the bane of their enemies. The chapter fielding dreadnoughts in excess to many of their peers, the mantra, "Even in death I still serve," befits their gloomy outlook. Earning praise and adulation across the length and breadth of the Imperium, their heritage as sons of Rabute Guilliman proves to counteract their otherwise grim countenance. Recruiting new aspirants every 13th day of the 13th month of every solar cycle from their storm-ravaged homeworld, upon the largest razor peak, the Ghost Mountain, initiates from the tribes of Garphis II are tested. Forming a governing body, in imitation of the Senatorum Imperialis of Terra, the chapter's Council of Eagles, comprised of their highest-ranking Astartes, convene to discuss future campaigns and pressing matters. Their chapter master, known simply as Commander, company captains, senior apothecaries, chaplains, forge masters and librarians advise their leader on how best to command their forces. Regarded well by the chamber militant of the Ordo Xenos, the Death Watch, each assault marine of this gloried chapter is invaluable to the vigils of the Jericho Reach. Honoring their dead by recovering armor plating, weapons, and war honors from their fallen, within the Eyrie's tallest tower, the Hall of the Fallen, relics from 1,000 battles adorn its walls. Grim trophies line the Reclusium, whether taken from Armageddon, Malvolian, Telemachus, or 100 other bloody wars. Each reminder of every fallen Astartes is placed side by side, as in death, all are equal. Most precious of all such artifacts are a single feather of Sanguinius, broken masonry of the Imperial Palace, and a shard of the Emperor's own armor, recovered during the Siege of Terra. Clad in silvered metallic ceramite, embellished with red adornments, each warrior of the chapter signifies their tactical role with crimson upon their right pauldron. Black low Gothic numerals are centered upon the designs to signify their squad, whilst the colouring of their knee plate, coupled with black low Gothic numerals, identifies their company. The icon of their chapter, a stylized Aquila replacing the eagle's head with a large white skull upon a field of silver, promising punishment to those who oppose the Imperium. Fighting during the torment of Pyrrhide, Aquila's crusade, defense of Bellis Corona, and Abaddon the Despoiler's 13th Black Crusade. With the revival of the Avenging Sun, the Doom Eagles have pledged much of their strength to Guilliman's Indomitas Crusade. For among all chapters of the Adeptus Astartes, few are as much of a testament to the moniker of Angels of Death, alike to the Doom Eagles. The Eagle Warriors are a second founding successor chapter of the Ultramarines. Their origins dating back to the days of the Great Crusade, prior to the discovery of the Ultramarines Primarch Rabute Guilliman. The then 20th chapter of the Legion proved to be experts of void combat. Unwilling to sanitize their strategies to comply with the strictures placed by their returned Primarch, the 20th chapter, known simply as Eagles, proved invaluable during the Battle of Calth. Established as a chapter following the end of the Horus Heresy, the Eagle Warriors earned glory for their service and were honored with siring their own successor chapter, the Marines Errant. Experts of combating Xenos, such as the Orcs, Eldar, and Tyranids, the Eagle Warriors proved victorious during the campaigns of the Baran War, reconquest of the Zypher subsector, and defense of Hythe. Losing much of their fleet strength during the expanse of the Great Rift across the stars, 2 companies of the chapter were declared lost. Clad in halved blue and white heraldic colors, the chapter utilized white markings of their tactical speciality upon their right pauldron, imposed with black high-Gothic numerals to identify their squad number. Following the dictates of the Codex Astartes, each warrior of the chapter trimmed their pauldrons with colors to denote their company, their right knee plates adorned with honorifics such as iron halos and laurels of victory. The symbol of the chapter, a blue eagle's wing upon a field of white, emphasizing their proclivity to engage their enemies from the skies. Roaming the galaxy as a fleet-based chapter, with the return of the Avenging Sun, new Primaris Space Marines have been inducted into the fold. Aiding their Genesire during the Indomitas Crusade, the Eagle Warriors continue their endless mission to defend the domains of the Lord of Ultramar. In my hands rests the fate, not solely of my chapter and my brethren, but of scores of worlds. Hundreds. With but a single command, I can save 1 trillion faithful souls, or condemn them to death, or worse. Those who have not carried such a burden cannot imagine its cost. Yet I could not wish for a greater honor. The Emperor forged me for this duty, and I shall never fail him. And I shall never fail him. The Genesis chapter is a second founding successor chapter of the Ultramarines, deriving their name from the virtue of being the first successor to be sired from their primogenitor. Few are honored to the degree of this noble and righteous chapter. As the firstborn of the 13th, following the dark days of the Horus Heresy, the Genesis chapter set the example for all successors to follow, and as such are staunch adherents to the Codex Astartes. Disciplined and courageous warriors all, their first campaign victorious against the Wordbearers Legion on the world of Newfound, earned them the right to establish the reclaimed planet as their own fiefdom. Demanding each recruit of the chapter to pilgrimage to Macragge to look upon the stasis-frozen visage of their Genesire. Each Astartes of the chapter for 10 millennia knelt in the presence of the Blade of Unity for a solar day before being accepted as a true warrior of the chapter. Initially comprised of the noblest Ultramarine veterans to survive the Great Civil War, their veneration of the Lord of Ultramar is second only to that primogenitor. Though records of their service prior to the 41st millennium have been lost to time, their deeds during the cleansing of the Ulik sector against the Tyranids and purge of the Orc War of Irontooth are regaled as among their most glorious campaigns. Seeking out the returned Primarch of the Ultramarines, Rabute Guilliman, following his resurrection within the Temple of Hera, the Genesis chapter stood at the side of the Avenging Sun during the Plague Wars of Ultramar. Committing 6 companies to the Spear of Espandor campaign, the Genesis chapter drove the pawns of Nurgle from the Espandor system, armed with their bolstered ranks of Primaris Space Marines. Refusing to deviate from any strictures of the Codex Astartes, the Genesis chapter are Ultramarines in all but name, and regularly conduct joint campaigns with their brethren. Should any Ultramarines company fall short of battle readiness, Astartes of the Genesis chapter shall be seconded to their primogenitor and adopt their heraldry. Struggling to work cohesively with their squad when seconded to the chamber militant of the Ordo Xenos, the Death Watch, many battle brothers of the chapter turn to the Holy Tome, Tullius's Insight, for guidance. Kept within Watch Fortress Ediok for each Genesis chapter Space Marine to consult. This collection of annotations from the Codex Astartes, mixed with Death Watch battle doctrine, guide the Sons of Newfound. Clad in red ceramite, embellished with yellow ornamentation, each Astartes of the Genesis chapter adorn their right pauldron with tactical designations, stenciled with a high Gothic numeral to mark their squad number on its center. Their pauldron trim, designating their company as per the outlines of the Codex Astartes, sergeants of the chapter affix a white skull to the brows of their helmets. The symbol of the chapter, the ancient Greek numeral of Lambda in black paint atop a white triangle on a field of red, signifying their righteous legacy as the progenitor of the Adeptus Astartes. Dogmatic in their loyalty to the Lord of Ultramar, the Genesis chapter shall continue to aid the Ultramarines as their most reliable and stalwart companions. The Inceptors are a second founding successor chapter of the Ultramarines. Details on their founding have been lost to Imperial records, though certain deeds made in the name of the Emperor remain. Earning glory during the Macarian Crusade of 392.M41, with the death of Lord Solar Macarius a year following the campaign's conclusion, civil war and unrest racked his conquered domains. The Macarian heresy had begun, an era which would not conclude until order could be restored, and so it was that the High Lords of Terra dispatched several Astartes chapters to quell the unrest. Among such chapters, the Doom Warriors and Inceptors were deployed, their protracted battles besmirching one another's honor until the two came to blows within the Euxine system. Upon learning of the rivalry, the High Lords of Terra dispatched the Minotaur's chapter to end the dispute. Striking both chapters at full force, whilst the Doom Warriors managed to escape the wrath of the Minotaurs, the Inceptors incurred heavier losses. Trapped upon the world of Eucine, the Inceptors endured the carnage of the Minotaurs until less than 100 Space Marines of their chapter remained. Forced to surrender, the Inceptors watched as the Minotaurs pilfered their fallen Astartes battle honors and most precious armaments of their prized voidcraft, first constructed during the heady days of the Great Crusade. Serving as an example for all Space Marines to witness, not even chapters of the gene lines of Ultramar were beyond the reproach from the will of the High Lords of Terra. Denouncing the Minotaurs as butchers with no sanction to enter the borders of Ultramar, despite the support and oaths to avenge their kin's reputation from the scions of the Ultramarines, the Inceptors struggled to salvage their honor. Clad in forest green ceramite, trimmed with gold and silver ornamentation, each Astartes of the chapter utilized tactical markings on their right pauldron with white paint. Green low Gothic numerals indicate their squad number on the center of such designs, their adherents of the Codex Astartes outlining their company designation to be represented by the color trim of their pauldrons. The symbol of their chapter, a green Ultima imposed on the letter I, their ties to the Ultramarines are overtly and proudly worn on their armor. The perilously depleted chapter, seemingly having not received any Primaris Space Marine reinforcements, many wonder if their extinction is inevitable.
Form ranks, draw blades, and stand fast, my brothers. We shall show these traitorous degenerates the meaning of vengeance this day.
The Iron Snakes are a second founding successor chapter of the Ultramarines, attributing their name from the water worms of their homeworld, Ithaca. Each member of the chapter must slay such a beast using a sea lance in order to be worthy of induction into the fold. The ocean world regarded by its people as the cradle of snakes. Though lacking much landmass, the world offers a surprising variety of environments to hone their martial skill. Their fortress monastery, known simply as the Chapter House, located on the orbiting moon of Charybdis. Prisoners of war are interrogated deep beneath its foundations by the chapter's Archons. Non-compliant to the strictures of the Codex Astartes, this peculiar chapter venerates its former heroes. Regarding their chapter as a phratry, it retains 1,000 Astartes of maximum strength, yet divides its number into 10-man squads at maximum, called phratry units. Recruits of the chapter are called petitioners, acting as chapter servants until proven worthy of adopting the ceramite of a true battle brother through duels in combat against their potential future squadmates. The original commanding sergeants of the chapter's founding are honoured by naming the chapter squadrons after such legends, with the most prestigious of such battle formations regarded as notable squads, comprised of veterans similarly known as notables. Only 5 notable squads serve. Their names Parthus, Vili, Thebes, and Damocles, with the most renowned squad Scipio, attributed as the elite forces of the chapter, alike to a small first company. Appointment to such prestigious squads acts the same as regular squads, though aspirants willing to fight the best warriors of the chapter risk greater injury, though they are compensated with induction into the most glorious bands of warriors. Each squad must utilize a standard bearer, a support weapon specialist, and in the notable squads, an apothecary is customary. Should a squad perish entirely, elders of the chapter must replenish its number from scratch in order to continue the glories earned in the name of their forebear. Active during the War of the Beast, Sabbat World's Crusade, Ambush of Naxos, and Abaddon the Despoiler's 13th Black Crusade, this unorthodox chapter has earned glory time and again in the name of the Emperor. Tasked with defending the reef stars of Imperial space, the Iron Snakes often fend off invasion from the Drukhari, and to a lesser extent, the Greenskins. Conducting missions known as undertakings, each squad leader offers a token to the chapter's Kylix drinking cups on the eve of battle, to which the chapter master shall decide which volunteers shall take to the field. Peculiarly dispatching only small numbers of Astartes in any given campaign, it is not unusual for the chapter to send only a single space marine to war zones in order to investigate their severity. Favoring shield wall tactics armed with combat shields, war blades, and sea lances, though capable of fielding dreadnoughts and librarians, the chapter overwhelmingly prefers to utilize simple infantry formations of highly independent units. Every Astartes is given 2 sea lances before battle, for such javelin-like weapons are disposable, yet highly effective in slaying high-value targets at range. Defending their home system, including the fiefdoms of Baal Solok and Rosetta from Highfleet Leviathan, the Iron Snakes defend the reef stars, tooth and nail. Donning armor of gunmetal grey, adorned with a golden aquila and trimmed with red paint, each Astartes displays their tactical designation with blue paint on their right pauldron, their squad noted with high Gothic numerals on their left knee plate. The symbol of their chapter, the coiled blue water worm on a white background, epitomizes their pagan beliefs and rituals. Treating their homeworld's water as sacred, each Astartes conducts the rite of the claiming of water before embarking on distant campaigns. Carrying a copper flask filled with life water, every planet the Iron Snakes step foot on is anointed with the ocean water of their homeworld. Cremating their fallen, the ashes of dead Iron Snakes are interred within copper urns known as Eusipus until they are returned to Ithaca in order to release their ashes upon the ocean breeze. The Libators are a second founding successor chapter of the Ultramarines. Among the most ill-regarded sons of Ultramar, the Libators have on several occasions faced censure by the Imperium. Uncompromising and brutal warriors, their chapter title derives from their practice of draining the blood of their enemies and offering it as a toast to the Emperor and their Primarch. Capturing enemy commanders and champions, their ill treatment of such captives continues to draw the ire of many of their kindred successors and Imperial authorities. Active during the Carthago Crusade of 914.M41, their bloody destruction spanning a century of combat alongside the Black Templars and Star Phantoms chapters was not found wanting in the eyes of their zealous comrades. Clad in yellow and black ceramite, adorned with blue ornamentation and tactical identifiers on their right pauldrons, white low Gothic numerals identify their squad number upon the center of their tactical designs. The symbol of their chapter, a blue chalice superimposed with an Ultima on a field of yellow, openly displays their fealty and shared heritage to the Ultramarines chapter. Aiding their primogenitor during the Third War for Damnos, and committing 2 battle companies to defend Ultramar during the Plague Wars. Despite their infamous reputation, the Ultramarines defend the reputation of their successor due to their stalwart and never faltering allegiance.
We are the Skyborn, the Angels Macabre, the death that strikes from above. We cut the life cords of our foes, even before they realize the mortal danger they are in. We are the Storm Incarnate, and we will not be denied.
The Mortifactors are a second founding successor chapter of the Ultramarines. Founded by the former captain of the Ultramarines Legion, Sasebo Tezuka, the superstitious hero of the 13th often utilized the Emperor's Tarot to divine the future of his fledgling chapter. Venturing to the desolate world of Posul, the eerie planet shrouded in darkness proved a fitting lair for such a morbid chapter. Such feral worlds are commonplace throughout the Imperium, often too resource poor and dangerous to dare to colonize. Yet the Mortifactors found sanctuary in this perpetually dark night world. Recruiting new recruits from the feral tribesmen of Posul, their cannibalistic rituals adopted by the chapter proved overwhelmingly influential in molding the future of the Mortifactors. Experiencing no sunlight for the entirety of their lives, each aspirant of the chapter must claim 100 skulls of their rival tribesmen before even attempting the trials of ascension. Venerating the Emperor as the ultimate warrior, Posul's most fervent worshippers of what they perceive as the great spirit of the universe, whether they be shamans or chieftains, often progress to become chaplains of the chapter. Until each neophyte has slain a worthy foe, the chapter regards them as faceless and are not permitted to wear helmets by their blooded kinsmen. Entering a trance-like state on the eve of battle, these brooding warriors claim to commune with their ancestors and the will of their Primarch, imbuing them with the strength to slay their enemies. Feasting on the remains of their prey, the severed heads of beasts, demons, and heretics are flensed of skin, so that their skulls may be displayed as kill trophies. Should an Astartes of the chapter fall, they believe in death that they shall be taken to the halls of victors to sit at the feasting table of the Master of Mankind. Assisting the Ultramarines during the campaign of the world of Tarsus Ultra against the Tyranid menace of High Fleet Leviathan, the Mortifactors' unnerving methods of foresight, regardless, have proven valuable to their primogenitor. Known to conduct strange rituals and ceremonies, during the year of 998.M41, on the day of the Feast of the Emperor's Ascension, the Mortifactors foresaw an omen of ill portent. Foreseeing the Third War for Armageddon during their meditative ritual, the chapter deemed the War of Ghazghkull to be the clarion call for the last battle. Calling all able-bodied tribesmen of Posul to be inducted into the chapter, the Mortifactors took leave of their fortress monastery entirely and entrusted its care to their chapter serfs. Contributing their full might to combat the Greenskins upon Armageddon, with their victory made in the name of the Emperor, the chapter returned to their homeworld to replenish their losses before embarking once more to combat Abaddon the Despoiler's 13th Black Crusade. Pledging a contingent of their number to serve at the side of the Avenging Sun, Rabute Guilliman, during his Terran Crusade of 999.M41 and Plague Wars of 012.M42, none can deny the Mortifactors' vehement loyalty to their Genesire. Opposed to the strictures of the Codex Astartes, the chapter adheres to the wisdom and guidance of its chaplains, despite their adoration of their Primarch. Unwilling to submit to dogma, the Mortifactors see the stagnation across the length and breadth of the galaxy as proof of blind adherence to the rigidity of the Codex. Clad in bone-white ceramite paired with black helmets, elbow plates, gauntlets, boots, and leg plating, the trophy kills of their power armor surrounding the silver aquila of their chest plate further embellishes their appearance as skeletal phantoms of war. Designating their tactical role on their right pauldron with white paint, a black High Gothic numeral stenciled on its center indicates their squad number. Though largely divergent from the strictures of the Codex Astartes, the Mortifactors nonetheless follow its conventions of trimming their pauldrons to denote their company number, as Guilliman intended. The symbol of their chapter, a simple bone-white skull on a field of black, foreboding their grim promise to pilfer the cadavers of their foes. Their homeworld's biosphere destroyed during the Third Tyrannic War, perpetrated by Highfleet Leviathan, this morose band of Astartes' gloomy outlook has only been bolstered. Their fortress monastery, the Basilica Mortis, lined with the bones of their slain brothers, the holy chapel of the chapter is filled to the brim with the skulls of their enemies. Said to house 1,000 Astartes at maximum, with over 7,500 labor and tech serfs, the Basilica Mortis, crafted to mimic the visage of a vast mountain range, provides safe harbor to the chapter's fleet vessels. The preserved corpses of both friend and foe, adorning every passageway and fresco of the monastery, hymnal dirges and chants break the eerie silence. Its vast hall still retaining blank canvases aplenty, to be decorated with the skeletal remains of every Astartes of the chapter, who falls in service to the ultimate warrior. The Nemesis Chapter are a second founding successor chapter of the Ultramarines. Drawn from the 22nd chapter of the 13th Legion, this band of warriors preceded their reunion with their Primarch, Rabute Guilliman, and stubbornly retained its Terran combat doctrines. Infamous for their widespread use of destroyer units and deployment of exterminatus warheads during campaigns, the Brotherhood of the Nemesis Chapter had worked well alongside the 8th Legion, the Night Lords. Cooperating with the 8th during the purgation of the Canceri Nebula against the Abhuman Corsairs, the Nemesis Chapter painted their gauntlets black, whilst retaining much of their storm grey ceramite of the years of unification. Adopting the symbol of a weighing scale, adorned with a death's head icon of judgment, this dour and merciless contingent of the Legion never aligned with the ideals of the Ultramarines entire. Reconstituting the remainder of these warriors into a successor chapter following the conclusion of the Horus Heresy, the Nemesis Chapter continued to purge the enemies of the Imperium with little remorse. Their campaigns leaving no survivors to tell of their deeds. Their involvement during the Orphean War against the Necron dynasty of Maynarch alongside the Minotaurs, Marauders, Angels Revenant, Red Seraphs, and Death Corps of Krieg continues to this day. Clad in dark green ceramite, adorned with yellow aquillas, the Codex-compliant chapter adheres to the outlines of the tome's directions to trim their pauldrons to identify their company. Painting white squad designations upon their right pauldrons and knee plates, black High Gothic numerals centered on the designs indicate their squad number. The symbol of their chapter, a large white skull on a field of dark green, characterizes the chapter's no-nonsense approach to warfare. Each death caused by their hands, another pledge to destroy the Emperor's enemies with impunity.
The existence of the alien is a problem with but one solution: extermination. When mankind is alone in the cosmos, only then will we have achieved our destiny.
The Nova Marines are a second founding successor chapter of the Ultramarines. Founded from the 13th Legion's 19th Nova Company, the first chapter master of the Nova Marines, Lucretius Corvo, had earned glories aplenty as a veteran of the Great Crusade. Lauded for his victory against the Wordbearers Legion during the Battle of Astagar during the Horus Heresy, the destruction of a traitor warlord Titan during the Six-Day Engagement had secured victory for the champion of the Ultramarines Legion. Awarded the Laurel of Defiance personally by Primarch Rabute Guilliman, Lucretius's battle honor sits in pride of place within the now chapter's Fortress Monastery. Their primary duty bestowed by their Primarch to guard the Imperial Fortress world of Honorum, the Nova Marines took to their vigil with pride. Installing their Fortress Monastery, the Fortress Novum, upon Honorum's surface, their defense of this feral world with time earned the chapter the right to claim the planet as their fiefdom. Recruiting their number from the planet's barbaric tribes, the Nova Marines conduct ritual duels to test their aspirants in the shadow of great statues made to honor their fallen heroes. Tattooing their flesh as a means to illustrate the greatest glories of their career, this practice originating from their homeworld allows for their legacy of storytelling to be preserved. Spending hours following successful campaigns, retelling their greatest triumphs and tragedies, the Astartes of the chapter believe that such designs ward their souls from malevolent spirits, and upon death shall be read by the Emperor as a chronicle of their deeds. Sovereign to several planets within proximity to Honorum, each officer of the chapter must oversee administrative duties of such worlds before achieving advancement to more senior ranks. Though not a crusading chapter, the Nova Marines are eager to commit portions of its strength to answer pleas for salvation from the downtrodden worlds of the Imperium. Their hunger for glory separating hundreds of their number for solar centuries at a time, the proclivity of the chapter's Astartes to be separated for long periods of time does nothing to diminish their bonds of brotherhood. The armory of the chapter, filled with ancient relics dating back to the days of the Great Crusade, a full company complement of Terminator armor suits, Dreadnought chassis, and vehicle pools of Predator, Vindicator, and Whirlwind tanks, are but a few of the Nova Marines' prized collection. Though the Nova Marines have not fought as a united force for over 4 millennia by virtue of their far-flung deployments, each battle waged by the chapter epitomizes the efficacy of the battle doctrines of the Codex Astartes. Should circumstance of how to proceed in battle be unclear by the outlines of the Codex, the Nova Marines exhaustively interpret the most likely scenario to which the tome would advise. Able to reinforce their brother chapters with haste, examples such as their timely intervention aiding the Sable Swords chapter on their homeworld of Obsidia prevented catastrophic losses and earned the Nova Marines an eternal debt oath for their actions. Aiding every adepter of the Imperium's organizational structure, and even outliers such as rogue traders, few among the Adeptus Astartes are credited with similar support endeavors. Strict adherence to the outlines of the Codex Astartes, the Nova Marines model their honorifics after their primogenitor, perceiving their shared Primarch and his seminal text to be divine in nature. Though not disciples of the Imperial cult, the Nova Marines revere the Emperor, their Genesire, and all Space Marines who have collaborated alongside them as paragons of humanity. Hateful of Xenos races beyond measure, their witness to 1,000 heresies perpetrated by alien species has fueled their mission to purge the galaxy of their presence. Such revulsion of aliens has evolved into something more than mere disgust, for as each Astartes of the chapter matures, they shall grow ever more intolerant of their presence, leading to emotion-fueled rampages at the expense of disciplined battle lines. Beginning with favoring Xenos targets during battle, in the extreme, veterans of the chapter shall endanger life and limb should they claim a single alien life. Trusted implicitly by the Chamber Militant of the Ordo Xenos, the Death Watch, Their refusal to even attempt negotiations with aliens suits them as perfect recruits. Seconding their most veteran Astartes to the cause of the Death Watch, each Nova Marine donning the black armor of these elite alien hunters receives among the highest honors of their chapter. Imparting knowledge earned through service to the Ordo Xenos upon completion of their tour, each Death Watch veteran returned to the Nova Marines is regarded as a hero of the chapter. Earning glory during campaigns such as the Pale Wasting, Lockcrawl Genocide, Luxor Uprising, and Badab War, every war zone requiring the intervention of the Nova Marines is often resolved soon after their applications of force. Clad in quartered cobalt blue and white ceramite, the black aquila of their chest is paired with black outline tactical designations on their right pauldron, centered with low Gothic numerals to indicate their squad. The symbol of their chapter, a white skull imposed upon an iron halo on a field of navy, is derived from the personal heraldry of their first chapter master, Lucretius Corvo. Said to have sired 2 chapters, the Angels of Fury and Dark Suns, their staunch loyalty to the Ultramarines chapter is beyond reproach. Present during Abaddon the Despoiler's 13th Black Crusade, and aiding the resurgent Avenging Sun during his Indomitus Crusade, Roboute Guilliman felt pride for the deeds of the descendants of his long-dead champion. Demanding that each Astartes of the chapter pilgrimage to the shrine of the Primarch before the revival of the Avenging Sun, their losses incurred from defending Ultramar from disaster have not gone unnoticed by their primogenitor. Contributing 6 companies of the chapter to defend the realm of Ultramar from invasion during the Plague Wars, despite the loss of Chapter Master Barden Davaro and many of their men, the valor of the chapter endures. Continuing the work of their vaunted founder, the Nova Marines shall not rest until they have expunged every Xenos race from the Emperor's domain. The Patriarchs of Elixis are a second founding successor chapter of the Ultramarines. Masters of marksmanship and dueling, so skilled are the Swordmasters of Elixis that on several occasions veterans are seconded to their brother chapters, including the Ultramarines, to serve within their honor guards. Selfless in nature, this chapter of Blade Masters have earned glory throughout the Imperium as noble protectors of the weak for their sacrifices made in the name of the innocent. Though primarily tasked with protecting downtrodden and vulnerable Imperial worlds, their service within the Chamber Militant of the Ordo Xenos, the Death Watch, has also bolstered the chapter's reputation as skilled warriors. Clad in red ceramite armor with bone-white paint on their backpacks and torso, sergeants of the chapter are identified by adopting further bone-white paint upon their helmets, signifying their squad speciality with black paint upon their right pauldron. White low Gothic numerals centered on the design indicate their squad number, whilst white low Gothic numerals on their left knee plates designate their company number. The symbol of their chapter, a white skull stamped with a black ultima on a field of red, exemplifies their allegiance to the Ultramarines and their legacy. Upholding the traditions of their vaunted Primarch, Roboute Guilliman, with the return of the Avenging Sun as Lord Commander of the Imperium, the mightiest Space Marines of the chapter have been installed as members of their Genesire's Victrix Guard. Their duty to defend the Lord of Ultramar paramount. None shall find these selfless paragons wanting.
Offer the incantation of activation. Speak forth the litany of retribution, and deliver unto the enemy the wrath of the Omnissiah.
The Praetors of Orpheus are a second founding successor chapter of the Ultramarines. Stationed on their homeworld of Orpheus Prime, within their subterranean fortress monastery known as the Labyrinthine of Orphea, the chapter toils alike to a well-oiled machine. Strict adherence of the Codex Astartes, their literal interpretation of its teachings, combined with the machine logic of the Tech Priest of Mars, allows no margin of error for its Astartes to follow its doctrines. Their understanding of technologies and imperial science, second only to the Adeptus Mechanicus, many believe an underlying alliance between the chapter and Scions of Mars exists, due to their extensive cybernetic implants and technologically advanced weaponry. Immensely disciplined in their approach to waging war, the chapter earned glory during the Hotun repression of 932.M39 against the renegade Astra Militarum Regiment under the command of the Xenos-controlled general, Lord Kazanlak. Destroying the parasitic Xenos and pardoning the surrendered regiments of guardsmen, the stoic praetors earned further glory millennia thereafter, defending the world of Vigilus during the War of Beasts. Clad in white power armor, adorned with a sky blue Aquila, power pack trim, and tactical indicators upon their right pauldrons, white high Gothic numerals centered on these designs indicate their squad, whilst further numerals on their left knee plate designate their company. The symbol of their chapter, a shield of blue marked with a yellow sunburst, is imposed with a blue Ultima upon a field of white at the top left corner of its design. Despite suspicion of their ties to the Mechanicus, the chapter's overt display of allegiance to the Ultramarines marks them as stalwart servants of Ultramar. Adopting the changes to the Codex Astartes penned personally by the revived Avenging Sun, Rabute Guilliman, the praetors of Orpheus continue to doggedly follow the teachings of their Genesire, with no allowances to deviate from his sacred commands. The Silver Eagles are a second founding successor chapter of the Ultramarines. The records of this enigmatic chapter remain largely unknown to this day, though records exist of their intervention of the Narfax Nebula campaign. Fighting alongside the Dark Angels chapter, conflict between the two nearly erupted due to the actions of the interrogator chaplain, Asmodai. Whilst emancipating several settlements from orc oppression within the nebula, the Silver Eagles liberated 4 planets from the Greenskins. Yet upon the world of Calva Senioris, Asmodai abandoned his position and slaughtered every human within his path during his pursuit of a mysterious warrior. Believing this individual to be a fallen angel, Asmodai located his charge to find an Inquisitor of the Ordo Xenos, and in doing so had condemned the Silver Eagles to orc reprisal. Losing half of their men due to the folly of the interrogator chaplain, nearly 200 Astartes had perished in the fraught battle. Informing the chapter of the Dark Angels' brash actions, the Inquisitor requested that the Silver Eagles bring censure to the Sons of the Lion. Chapter Master Periphas would not dare to declare open war against the lauded descendants of the First Legion, and instead dispatched emissaries to the Rock to demand compensation for the loss of their men. Submitting to the demands of the Silver Eagles, Supreme Grandmaster Azrael's mastery of diplomacy proved invaluable, and for his crimes against the descendants of the 13th, Asmodai received punishment for his actions. Clad in metallic silver ceramite, adorned with Codex-compliant trim on their pauldrons to identify their company, white squad identifiers are employed upon their right pauldrons, with white low Gothic numerals stenciled on the right of these designs to signify their squad number. The symbol of their chapter, a stylized Aquila upon a field of navy blue, epitomizes their devotion to the Emperor and his Imperium. Aiding their primogenitor during the Plague Wars of 111.M42, the Silver Eagles pledged 5 companies of their chapter to aid their resurrected Primarch Rabute Guilliman, and have earned glory for their defense of Ultramar.
While vile mutants still draw breath, there can be no peace. While obscene heretics' hearts still beat, there can be no respite. While faithless traitors still live, there can be no forgiveness.
The Silver Skulls are a second founding successor chapter of the Ultramarines. Revered as among the most prestigious creeds of the Adeptus Astartes, these stern warriors do not abide failure, no matter the cost it may incur. Heavily relying on their librarius for guidance, it is the belief of the Silver Skulls that the Emperor speaks through them, and as such, their utterances are sacrosanct. distrustful of such zeal. Regardless of their misgivings, no Imperial commander is foolish enough to deny the aid of these revered Astartes. Drawing many of their recruits from their homeworld of Varsavia Tertius, or simply Varsavia, the Silver Skulls also recruit aspirants from the feral world of Garanda II and other disparate planets. Ostensibly a death world covered in permafrost, the chapter world of Varsavia's indigenous wildlife and hostile icy environments breed hardy aspirants for recruitment. The fortress monastery of the Silver Skulls, the Argent Mons, located at the far north of the singular inhabitable continent of the planet, upon the side of an enormous mountain, is rich with veins of silver ore. Their origins as ultramarine successors lost to time, with their continued isolation from the wider Imperium. For millennia, it was a mystery to all within their ranks as to where their genetic legacy lied. Their chapter world within close proximity of the Gildar Rift, few Imperial outposts remain within this sector of space, and as such, the Silver Skulls are the only response force capable of driving back raids from the inhabitants of the Maelstrom. Each chapter master assumes the title of their founder, Lord Commander Argentius, no matter their former name, and pledges to defend the Gildar Rift with regular patrols of their fleet. Incorporating such duty into their culture, though an ignoble task in the eyes of their peers of the Adeptus Astartes, the Silver Skulls retain immense pride in protecting their territories from piratical bands of traitors. Regularly fending off incursions perpetrated by the Red Corsairs warband of Huron Blackheart, each time swiftly driving them back into the Maelstrom's embrace. Famed for their involvement in the Red Heresy of 290.M36, Great Malagatine Purge of 770.M38, Corinth Crusade of 698.M41, Third War for Armageddon of 998.M41, and ongoing Second Relief of Mordian, the chapter has earned glories aplenty for their stalwart aid given to several branches of the Imperium's war machine. Adherents to the conventions of the Codex Astartes, though ignorant of their ties to the Lord of Ultramar, the Silver Skulls follow his prescribed methods of war with little deviation. Installing a specialist rank within their structure, the Librarian Prognosticators of the chapter lead as the spiritual advisors of their creed in a similar manner to a chaplain. Studying future portents of their fate using the Emperor's Tarot, the Prognosticators have final say as to whether their forces shall engage or ignore calls for aid. Forming a governing body known as the Prognosticatum, these champions of the chapter advise many captains of the Order, and whilst chaplains are a part of the Prognosticatum, their lack of psychic powers puts them in a position of lesser influence. Coordinating their duties with the equerry of their Lord Commander and Chief Prognosticator, Vashiro, this similar inheritor of a title of their chapter's legacy must give his blessing before any campaign can be undertaken by the Silver Skulls. Studying ancient tomes known as the Orthodoxy within their librarium, the collective wisdom and accounts of the psychic visions of the Prognosticators guides their actions and those of the chapter's future. Each proven neophyte must undergo the Fast of the Ascension and the Long Patrol during their training. Though details of the feast are unknown to outsiders, the Long Patrol sees each aspirant of the chapter endure the wilds of Arsavian. Equipped with only a combat knife to defend themselves, the few who remain ascend to the ranks of the Astartes, whilst all who perish have their names recorded in the honor rolls of the chapter. Demanding each successful aspirant pilgrimage to the Prognosticator Temple, each have auguries cast to divine their future potential. Implanted with gene seed if successful, with the so-called quintessence sacred successfully accepted by their bodies, each promising scout marine is blessed by the chief prognosticator of the chapter. Regarded as fierce and relentless warriors, the chapter is sparing with its deployments and prefers to utilize skirmish tactics rather than battle lines. Never surrendering ground when taken, no matter the cost, their legendary stubborn defiance is honed through training in pitch darkness, which improves their eyesight and suitability to fight with little to no bearings. Highly superstitious in nature, the mere mention of heresies or acts of malevolence causes these warriors to habitually make the sign of the Aquila to ward their hearts from evil. Speaking a personal litany in prayer before battle, each battle brother retains connections to their heritage and bloodlines to remind them of those they fight to protect. Returning their fallen brethren's bodies to their funeral world of Pax Argentius, the spirits of their kinsmen look down from the moon orbiting their homeworld to watch over and guide their chapter's future. Constructing memorials and monuments to honor their dead, the Silver Skulls ritually cremate their fallen brothers and, when possible, place their ashes within urns carved from the skull of the enemy that ended their life. Burying mortal serfs alongside their masters, both are honored equally with their passing, for each has served the Emperor in their own way. Within this peaceful bastion of the honored dead, the chaplains of the chapter train and study in their attempts to understand the many lessons earned through blood and toil. Honoring the dead by inscribing their names on copper plates to adorn their armor, others keep the memory of their kinsmen alive in their minds. Known for their proclivity to claim the severed heads of their enemies, whether this is a custom of their tribal heritage is unclear. Within their chapels, many silver-coated trophies wrought by the artistry of the chapter's Custodes Cruor artificers are collected and coupled with plaques detailing the name of each battle brother who claimed such trinkets. Each company of the chapter maintains their prestige through shows of such headhunting, each silvered skull embellished with designs matching the tattoos and honor marks of the Space Marines who claimed them. Regaling one another with the tales tied to how these skulls were claimed, the most garrulous Astartes of the chapter can hold their kinsmen in awe of their stories time and again. Clad in silver power armor trimmed with black, apothecaries of the chapter paint both their pauldrons white with black vertical stripes centered on their helmets. Assigning their tactical role upon their right pauldron, its color designates their company in slight deviation to the Codex Astartes. Forming 10 squads within each company named after a type of gemstone, the eye slits of the sigil of their chapter upon their pauldron is set with such stones to identify their squad. White low Gothic numerals on their right knee plate acting as a backup should such gemstones be damaged or lost. Etching tattoos upon their skin with the aid of the Custodes Cruor, each represents their battle honors and greatest deeds with often breathtaking artistry. Only captains of the chapter are permitted to tattoo their faces, for there is much canvas of their skin to mark before receiving such an honor. The symbol of their chapter, a stylized silver skull on a field of black, its stark similarity to the 4th Traitor Legion, the Iron Warriors, has drawn scrutiny from the wider Imperium. Reinforced with Primaris Space Marines, following the return of the Avenging Sun, Rabute Guilliman, with the resurgence of the Lord of Ultramar, their descendants from his bloodline has been confirmed by the chapter's apothecaries. Caring little for their origins, nor their primogenitor's legacy, the Silver Skulls thrive knowing their actions have been made in the name of the Emperor, and not been found wanting. Renewed in strength and in purpose, the Silver Skulls take to the field across numerous fronts, knowing in their hearts that their duty to preserve the Imperium is ironclad. What makes a hero is not only his actions on the battlefield. A Space Marine is judged by his battle brothers and by the Emperor himself, both for the strength of his arm and the strength of his purpose. The White Consuls are a second founding successor chapter of the Ultramarines. Part of the band of 20 chapters charged with defending the Imperium from the threats of the Eye of Terror, the Astartes Praesus. Despite their homeworld being far from the Warp Storm, the White Consuls never falter in their duty to patrol its borders. Peculiarly for a Codex-compliant chapter, the White Consuls maintain 2 chapter masters, one for governing their homeworld of Sabatine, whilst the other serves as battle master in containing the forces of the Eye of Terror. Renowned for their defiance against Abaddon the Despoiler's 12th Black Crusade, known as the Gothic War of 139.M41, their selfless actions in aiding the Death Watch during the Achilles Crusade of 777.M41 further emphasizes their reputation as valiant souls. repelling the might of 10,000 word-bearer Astartes during the siege of Boros Gate with only 5 companies of their chapter. The later arrival of further combatants under the command of the Necron Overlord, the Undying One, proved insufficient at breaking the White Consuls. Losing 200 Astartes during the opening hours of the campaign, alongside the Astra Militarum regiments stationed on Boros Prime, the White Consuls drove back Traitor Titan war machines using captured defense lasers. Millions of mortals perished in combating the Sons of Lorgar, yet with the conclusion of the battle, 7,000 Wordbearers Astartes and 100 White Consuls remained. Reinforced by the Grey Knights with the arrival of the Necrons, the Wordbearers were cast from Boros Prime. 3 Astartes of the White Consuls survived the grueling campaign, yet their massive casualties, including their chapter master, Titus Valens, had bloodied the traitors immensely. Restoring their chapter to full strength in the years that followed, during 999.M41, the White Consuls committed its entire chapter to defend the Cadia sector during Abaddon the Despoiler's 13th Black Crusade. Cut off from the Imperium following the destruction of Cadia and birth of the Great Rift, the White Consuls for their valor incurred reprisal. The Death Guard warband, the Lords of Silence, allied with the Wordbearers warband, the Weeping Veil, laying siege to their homeworld of Sabatine. With the majority of their strength cut off from their homeworld, its desecration was assured, for the Lords of Silence have transformed it into a horrendous plague planet. Though losing their homeworld, the White Consuls refused to eschew their duties to defend the Imperium. Administrators and guardians of several star systems, such as the aforementioned Boros system, each neophyte of the chapter must serve as a coadjutor of these worlds, with veterans of the chapter appointed as planetary consuls during their service before promotion to the rank of sergeants or captains. Excelling at orbital drop pod assaults, despite their skill at urban warfare, it is the chapter's expertise at governance which sets it apart from its peers. Fervent worshippers of the divinity of the Emperor, the White Consuls, unlike most chapters, are adherents to the Imperial cult and are fanatical disciples of the Codex Astartes. Clad in white ceramite adorned with yellow aquillas and blue iconography, their color scheme is a direct reversal of that of their primogenitor, the Ultramarines. Designating their tactical speciality on their right pauldron with blue paint, the trim of their pauldrons, as dictated by the Codex Astartes, reflects their appointed company. The symbol of their chapter, a blue eagle's head on a field of white, mimics their likewise second founding brother chapter, the Black Consuls. Revered as wise and noble warriors, despite the many tragedies they have endured, the White Consuls continue to fight in the name of the Emperor and uphold the dignity and legacy of their forebears.
The Black Guard are a second founding successor chapter of the Raven Guard. Founded by the commander of Primarch Corvus Corax's honor guard, Gareth Arendi, the dubious master of the Shadow Wardens left behind a legacy of uncompromising duty, no matter the cost it should entail. Deriving their name from the Black Guard created during the Horus Heresy, following Arendi's actions saving his Genesire's life during the Day of Vengeance, the chapter bears immense pride for their forefathers' actions. With the Horus Heresy concluded, the Raven Lord departed into the Eye of Terror, and mere centuries following their founding, the Black Guard began to show signs of decay. Their gene seed causing several of their organs to malfunction, such afflictions do little to hamper their ability to conduct ambush maneuvers against their foes. Venerated for their service during the campaigns of Doom Gorge and Abaddon the Despoiler's 13th Black Crusade, though many of their peers disdain their past, their actions made to defend the Imperium are unquestionable. Clad in white power armor, flanked by black pauldrons, helmets and gauntlets, the chapter utilizes red chest aquillas and tactical designations on their right pauldrons. Stenciling white low Gothic numerals on the center of their squad designations, as a semi-codex compliant chapter, the Black Guard adorn their knee plate with its outlined color schemes to identify their company. The symbol of their chapter, a red circlet bisected by a white lightning bolt, and roundlet on a field of black, epitomizes their use of overwhelming firepower. Their proclivity to deploy artillery batteries, such as Thunderfire cannons and Vindicator tanks, lays waste to their enemies, for one can find clear evidence of the chapter's campaigns by virtue of the cratered ruins left in the wake of their onslaughts. Stop blindly obeying the words of the book and look at the situation. You have completed your training, but you must now learn to apply it. Regurgitation is not the answer. Simple analysis and thought must be used to solve the problem. The Raptors are a second founding successor chapter of the Raven Guard. Founded in the wake of the Horus Heresy, this pragmatic band of warriors are said to have been drawn from the raw recruits of Deliverance, thrust into the Great Civil War following the Dropside Massacre of Istvan V. Spared the mutations wrought from the Ravenlord's attempts to rebuild his legion by use of the Primarch genetic materials tampered with by the Alpha Legion, the Raptor Company earned valor in battle during the scouring of the traitors. Granted autonomy as a successor chapter of the 19th, following the implementation of Astartes reforms outlined by Primarch Rabute Guilliman, the Raptors began to lay the foundations of their warrior creed. Records suggest their early service during the 31st millennium was facilitated as a fleet-based chapter as they embarked upon the stars, rooting out heresy. Earning renown for their effective and measured methods of waging war, within but a few centuries, the Raptors were bequeathed their own homeworld within the Segmentum Obscurus, within close proximity to the accursed Eye of Terror. Tasked with patrolling the Warprift, though not assimilated into its guardians, the Astartes Praesus, for many millennia the chapter cast back the tide of darkness alongside its stalwart allies. Yet the galaxy is replete with many malevolent beings, and with time, the homeworld of the Raptors was sundered by the acts of the War Master of Chaos, Abaddon the Despoiler. It is unclear whether such an event transpired during the 4th or 5th of the Despoiler's Black Crusades, and all that can be gleaned is its destruction between the 34th and 36th millennium. The chapter's repositories of knowledge, ancient relics won through toil, and most valuable armaments lost. Many a lesser band of warriors would buckle under the strain of such catastrophe, and during the 37th millennium, all trace of the Raptors disappeared from Imperial records. Presumed at worst extinct, and at minimum lost for all time, for 2 millennia no account can be found of this mysterious force. Yet during the Caberiad Wars of the 39th millennium, the Raptors returned. Replenished to their full strength despite their grievous losses, none know the methods nor means of their resurgence, yet were proud to see such a gloried chapter return to the fold. Claiming a new homeworld to establish their new fortress monastery during the conflict, regarded simply as Prime, the Raptors made full use of the system's Imperial supply lines to facilitate victory in the name of the Emperor. Traversing to the northern border of the Segmentum Solar, following the Caberiad Wars, the chapter to this day operates from the world known by many titles such as Badwater, Ra, Cortis Pol, and Numina. Its location not disclosed by the chapter to the Adeptus Administratum. All that is known of the planet is its location somewhere within the stellar drifts of the Sutter Spiral Nebula, and has proven impossible to locate by Imperial authorities. Their secrecy extending to within their own ranks, the loss of their original homeworld further emboldens the Raptors to guard their base of operations through use of misinformation and subterfuge. Famed for their service during the Origo Blockade, Sancta Angelis Campaign, Badab War, and Third War for Armageddon, regardless of the few instances of their near annihilation, the chapter refuses to stand idly by as the Imperium is beset on all sides. Showing blatant disregard for many tenets of the revered tome of the Ultramarines Primarch, the Codex Astartes, many an Ultramarine has openly decried the Raptors chapter for their prideful disdain of their Genesire's writings. Preferring to target their foes at range, rather than in close quarters. The chapter's extensive use of scout marines allows them to gather intelligence before orchestrating complex ambush and stealth maneuvers. Alike to their primogenitor, the Raptors seek to find vulnerabilities in their enemies' lines and determine the best means to overwhelm such exploitable weaknesses. Maintaining sizable land speeder battle groups in excess of their cousin chapters to support their insursions and battle lines. Such overwhelming deployments seek to utterly devastate their opponent's ranks with minimal chance of endangering their own men. Placing contingent strategies in reserve to allow for fluid strategies and flexible command structure, the chapter sees the prescribed outlines advised by the Codex Astartes as far too rigid to be used effectively. Caring not for their supposed dishonorable actions should they achieve victory, the Space Marines of the chapter find victory alone to be worthy of praise. Scrutinized by their peers for their use of espionage and counterintelligence practices, the Raptors, though aware of the limitations of their creed, have never faltered in administering them with skill enough to achieve unquestionable results. Operating largely independently from their chapter command, each company must be capable of achieving victory without the support of their kinsmen. Never rushing their scouts to gather vital information on the vulnerabilities of their enemies, their effectiveness in battle can all too easily be blunted should they rush into the fray armed with unreliable or falsified intel. Leaving ruses of their own maneuvers in order to attempt to trick their enemies, it is rare for any commander to ascertain the true nature of the Raptors' intent, nor the location of their command centers. Adept at countering opposition forces far in excess of their own numbers, their cooperation with Astra Militarum regiments has proven invaluable in utilizing their allies' resources to best effect. Deploying their Astartes to work within Guard regiments directly, each squad and battalion exceed their former combat acumen by virtue of being led by the Emperor's Angels personally. Due to their exceptional marksmanship and proclivity to use hit-and-run guerrilla warfare tactics, their record of cooperation with mortal soldiers has proven beneficial in preventing the loss of lives typical for most guardsmen. Akin more to a band of assassins than soldiers, the methods used by the Raptors, though incredibly effective, have regardless continued to draw the ire of many Space Marine chapters. Characterized by a grim determination to survive, derived from their prior circumstances, threatening to extinguish the legacy of their chapter, the Raptors have an uncanny ability to adapt and overcome adversity. Bending, yet never breaking, each warrior of the chapter is wary of emotions such as pride or vainglory, and as such refute proclamations of cowardice levied at them should they retreat from battle. Immune to the vices of hubris and dogma, the Raptors, while deeming the Codex Astartes as a useful guide to strategy and tactics, nevertheless look down upon those who deem its words as sacrosanct. Failure is not tolerated, yet neither is total loss of their numbers, and so it is that the Raptors thread the needle of achieving their goals without sacrificing their battle brothers and their equipment needlessly. Proven to be difficult to work with when deployed alongside their cousin chapters, the accusations of cowardice do little to antagonize these stoic warriors. Each senior officer of the chapter deemed worthy only when proven to master battlefield awareness, prioritization of threats, and rapid response to changes in enemy tactics. All Space Marines of the Raptors, regardless of rank, are expected to show initiative and discourage blind obedience. Seeing each warzone and skirmish as a puzzle to be solved, each viable method to diminish every problem must be entertained, for there is no shame in attempting unorthodox practices within their creed. Abandoning secondary objectives should they allow for overall victory, the Raptors care not for articles of faith nor honor if their rejection achieves results. Finding purpose and glory only in deeds made to the Emperor, death is reward enough for these righteous souls. Their gene seed remarkably stable, considering their descendants from the 19th Legion, flaws regardless exist within every member of their creed. Their skin pale to the point of near translucence and hair a jet black. Their non-functioning muconoid implants prevent their skin's ability to endure the harsh vacuum of space, nor extreme temperatures, such as frigid environments. Retaining functional Betcher's glands, the Raptors are capable of producing corrosive saliva as a means to injure or digest hazardous foods. Their fatalistic outlook on life, further exacerbated by their Primarch's genetic curse, the most veteran raptors wrestle with the knowledge that humanity hangs on the precipice of extinction and can lapse into bouts of reckless abandon in order to achieve the embrace of death. Clad in dull green ceramite, adorned with silver chest aquillas, each Astartes paints white tactical rolls on their right pauldrons, with black high Gothic numerals centered on their designs, signifying their squad number. In slight contravention of the Codex Astartes, the Raptors utilize white high Gothic numerals on their right knee plates to identify their company number. The symbol of their chapter, a white raptor's head on a field of dull green, characterizes their no-nonsense approach to heraldry beyond utilitarian purposes. Reinforced with Primaris Space Marines in the wake of the resurgence of the Avenging Sun, Rabute Gilliman, the Raptors, now armed with enhanced warriors, continue to hone their strategies with such potent new additions to their arsenal. Their loyalty to the Emperor unimpeachable, the Raptors continue to fight in his name, emboldened with technologies granted by the likewise unorthodox Archmagos Dominus Belisarius Cawl.
Tread softly, brothers. The foe is close, and my blade thirsts for vengeance.
The Revilers are a second founding successor chapter of the Raven Guard, drawing many of its founding members from the veteran stock of the 19th Legion, all of which were survivors of the Istvan V Dropsite Massacre. Carrying the teachings of stealth and infiltration from their primogenitor, the Revilers hold the legacy of their Primarch in high esteem and continue to seek vengeance for the sins committed during the Dropsite Massacre. Famed for their annihilation of an Alpha Legion warband by way of setting traps during the chase within the Haedrak system, the chapter has earned further glories for their service during the Purgation of Azoth, Battle of Gorgon Depths, Lithon Purge, and Abaddon the Despoiler's 13th Black Crusade. Using land speeders and assault bikes to hasten their maneuvers, their Thunderhawk insertions are supported by deployments of dreadnoughts via drop pod. Clad in grey ceramite, adorned with silver chest aquillas, the chapter designates their tactical role on their right pauldron with white paint, imposing the designs with black high Gothic numerals to identify their squad. As a Codex-compliant chapter, the Revilers use coloured trim of their pauldrons to mark their company. The symbol of their chapter, a human skull struck by a bolt of lightning on a field of grey, epitomizes their talents as ambushers. Experts at guerrilla tactics, especially within jungle and wet weather environments, the Revilers strike from behind enemy lines before slipping once more within the safety of the shadows.
The Angels of Vigilance are a second founding successor chapter of unknown origin. Suspected to be derived from the genetic line of Lionel Johnson, these mysterious Astartes hail from the world of Per Vigilium. The ruling caste of the planet, overthrown by the Dark Angels prior to their second founding, records suggest that a detachment of their heritage were tasked to maintain the planet's fealty to the Imperium, and as such, bears credence to the Angels of Vigilance potential bloodline. The Per Vigilium system, in close proximity to the Cadian Gate, leading to the Eye of Terror, the chapter stand at the vanguard of each Chaos incursion which threatens to invade Holy Terror, waging war against the pawns of the ruinous powers wherever the warp is calm enough to allow for safe passage. Due to the immense threats contained within the Eye, the chapter have never in their history committed to deploying the entirety of their number to any single campaign. Swearing oaths to never leave their fortress monastery undefended, this cautious chapter never allows for anything less than one full company to be stationed within its confines, refusing requests for aid from the High Lords of Terror should they demand the chapter entire. Few of the Angels of Death have ever displayed such blunt disregard for the authority of the rulers of the Throne World. Clad in yellow ceramite, adorned with black chest aquillas, power pack vent ports, and tactical rolls on their right pauldron,
white low-Gothic numerals are stenciled on such designs to indicate their squad. Each Space Marine marking their left knee plate to identify their company using the prescribed conventions of the Codex Astartes. The symbol of their chapter, a black erupting crucible flanked by black wings on a yellow field, worn proudly on their left pauldron. Reputed for their service during the Third War for Armageddon and Abaddon the Despoiler's 13th Black Crusade, the chapter stands as only among 4 of their creed to have fought in both lauded campaigns.
We step forth on your path. Our Emperor be before us. Our Emperor be beside us. Our Emperor be in our tread.
The Red Hunters are a second founding successor chapter of unknown origins. Founded with the specific mission to root out the traitor legions during the Great Scouring, it is said that the fledgling Emperor's Holy Inquisition personally saw to their formation. Establishing a secret pact between the chapter and Inquisition, the Red Hunters hereafter provided honor guards and military might to aid its myriad branches. Worshipping the Master of Mankind as a god, there is no higher calling in their minds than to serve directly with the enforcers of his will. Regularly mind-wiped to prevent their infiltration or corruption by the ruinous powers, each line soldier of the chapter willingly sacrificed their memories and experience in order to retain their purity. Venerated for their service during the Siege of Vrax and observation of the Red Hunt, monitoring the penitent crusades of the Executioners, Lamenters, and Mantis Warriors chapters following their involvement in the Badab War, the chapter's presence epitomizes the Inquisition's omnipresent influence. Clad in red ceramite, adorned with gold pauldron trim and silver chestaquillas, the chapter has eschewed the need to represent their designated company color scheme used by the Codex Astartes, and instead use high Gothic numerals in gold on their left knee guard. Indicating their tactical role with white paint on their right pauldrons, black low Gothic numerals are centered on the designs to denote their squad. Sergeants paint golden stripes on their helmets, whilst veterans remove the gold of their knee plate and instead utilize silver numerals. The elite First Company, embellishing their armor with silver heraldic bands on their helmets, sergeants of the company fully paint their helmets silver in order to be easily identified in the heat of battle. Terminator squads switch the position of their chapter icon from left to right and instead replace their left pauldron with the Crux Terminatus. The symbol of their chapter, a white skull stamped with the inquisitorial rosette on a field of red, lays bare their fealty and ties to the Emperor's clandestine order. Their glories unrecorded by symbols of battle honor or pride, only the dents and scarring of their war gear retains evidence of their deeds made in war. The Yellow Jackets are a second founding successor chapter of unknown origin. Established in the wake of the Horus Heresy, this peculiar band of warriors unleashed their might upon the rebellious worlds of the wider Imperium. Experts of lightning strike warfare, facilitated through use of Thunderhawk gunships, much of their campaigns are waged far from the power bases of the Imperium's domains and seek to pacify burgeoning threats within the dark corners of the Void. Clad in black ceramite adorned with yellow chestaquillas, helmet, and pauldron trim, the chapter further paint their lower leg plates and boots with striped heraldry akin to their insectoid namesake. Adopting yellow tactical rolls upon their right pauldrons atop red paint, sergeants of the chapter utilize skull icons on their helmets, with captains painting their helmets red. As a partially Codex-compliant chapter, the Yellow Jackets use black Gothic numerals on their right knee guard to designate their company number. The symbol of their chapter, a yellow wasp on a field of black, emphasizes their proclivity to strike fast with deadly effect. revered for their service, such as their heroic defiance against the Orc War of Warlord Grasnik. The Yellow Jackets sporadically aid the waning defenses of the Imperium, before once more withdrawing from the fray. This has been a tale of the Great Imperium of Man, read by the Remembrancer. The descendants of the Astartes legions continue to burgeon with the introduction of Primaris Space Marines and the Ultima founding. Many legacies would be forged through toil and valor, yet few have ever surpassed the noble origins of the second founding. Whilst veterancy is a virtue characterized by experience, never forget that raw talent and ingenuity are also valuable attributes. So should you be a promising neophyte, strive to surpass your forebears whilst respecting their deeds. And if you are a tested doyen, never forget to reject complacency and foster new generations to surpass your own glories.